Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Monday evening murder podcast. I am your host, Faye Fire, and tonight we are talking about House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 7, called The Red Sowing. This was a crazy episode. I really loved it. It was so exciting. It was so shocking, and it was wild. It was a wild ride. So I really enjoyed it a lot. I think it was very exciting. You know, it's been a pretty slow paced season 2. And this was really like the pop off we needed to really kind of remind us why we're watching this. I'm wearing my hand of the queen pin tonight, which I just keep forgetting to put on. So shout out to AK. I'm pretty sure I got this from one of your live streams like years ago. So So Mandy will be joining us momentarily. She got her times mixed up, which is fine. Like I've been a little all over the place with scheduling because of children. You know how it goes. Summer scheduling, right? So thank you all for being here, and we'll just kind of start slowly. We'll wait for Mandy to join us, and we have so much to talk about tonight because, as you guys know, well, Mandy and I love to talk about sort of the symbolism, religious symbolism and mythology and that kind of thing that is present in these stories that we cover. And it was definitely present in this new episode. So I'm very excited to talk about it. And I know Mandy is as well. She's got a ton of notes. And so we'll probably kind of just, we're going to break it up. But okay, so before Mandy joins us, we'll just kind of talk about it. So if you guys are here with us from the Yellow Jackets fandom, which I know many of you are, then what happened, the events of this episode might be somewhat familiar to some of the things that Mandy and I have been discussing for a couple years now at this point in the Yellow Jackets realm. The mythology that was sort of interwoven into this episode, the Greek mythology, and like Valyrian mythology, which is pulling from sort of ancient Greek inspiration and Egyptian as well. But yeah, we're going to talk about all of that stuff, the Eleusinian mysteries, which is Rhaenyra's mystery religion is what happened in this episode. And that is very exciting to me. So, so before we get too much further into it, if you're here watching the live stream, drop a hello in the chat. I see a lot of you guys are here already. Mrs. Duncan the Tall. We have Wild Marjoram, Carl Karsnark, Kirsty Angel, Jackie C. Hello, Miss Jackie. And I think that's everyone. Northern Tommy, I see you here. Let's see. That's Chaos Theory. I like that name, indeed. Welcome to the stream and to the chat. So thank you all for being here. So let me know in the chat, what did you guys think of this episode? Did you love it? Were you just like blown away? Tell me how you're feeling, if you have questions, or just whatever. What are your thoughts about this? Because I just have so much to say, especially about the actual like sowing of the seeds. Of course, there was a lot going on with everyone else too. It was kind of a quiet episode for the Greens in particular. Damon definitely has some stuff going on at Harrenhal. Alice Rivers wasn't there. So, I'm not like, as enthused. No, I'm joking. I love Damon. And he's looking, he's getting back to it. His ayahuasca therapy is really paying off. He's starting to get back to his, his real purpose, the real Daemon Targaryen that we know. Can the real Daemon Targaryen please stand up? So, so let's see here. Let me just check through the chat. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, definitely drop them in. Hopefully Mandy will be here with us shortly. I don't want to get too far ahead of her just because I know she has thoughts and ideas, but I wanted to get started. I did want to, I posted in my community tab today about the one of the behind the scenes, House of the Dragon has been doing tons of behind the scenes kind of things, little videos and all of that kind of stuff. And they did one last week on the weaponry that's featured in the show. And one of the things that they pointed out was that in Rhaenyra's apartment, she keeps Harwin Strong's sword. And like, you know, she had like in the episode 6, I believe, she has that kind of Visenya moment where she raises up the sword and like she's kind of channeling that inner Visenya. But amongst her swords that she has lying there, one of those is Harwin's. And I just thought that was like so touching and sweet, and like just proves like Rhaenyra and Harwin had a real life love story going on. Like they really loved each other. And I think that, you know, despite she and Daemon having such a strong and intense connection, I think that she and Harwin, like that might have been like her one true love, you know? I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? I love Harwin. Like he is the finest man. And, and he was just a great, like, protector and just really great. He and Rhaenyra together, and I wish that we would have gotten more of that. George R.R. Martin has said that he could write an entire novella about Harwin and Rhaenyra's relationship, and I would just like pay money to read that because that would just be just so romantic. So okay, so let's see. Oh, thank you, Carl. Yes, I said before, I think I got this from AK, one of AK's live streams like years ago. I somehow ended up winning that, and she sent this to me. I'm fairly certain that's how I acquired this little bad boy. So maybe I'm Hand of the Queen to AK. Just saying. Just saying. If you guys don't follow AK's channel, go find it. AK Watch. Mrs. Duncan the Tall, yes, we do talk about spoilers. So just so everyone here is watching, yeah, we will be getting into some spoilers. We'll try and avoid it. And of course, we don't really know what's coming up in the finale, but I'm sure we're going to get into that conversation as well. But thank you for checking. I appreciate your reminder. It was a good one. I get comments on that occasionally or regularly. So I'm trying to be better about giving spoiler warnings. So yes, indeed, Harwin is the best man in the series. Okay, so did anyone feel like maybe Daemon coached Oscar on that speech? Good question. I don't know. I don't think that went how Daemon had planned whatsoever. We'll get into that one, but yeah, a lot went down in the Riverlands. Okay, here we go. Yeah, here's AK's channel. Yeah, book spoilers, not show spoilers. I don't have any. I don't get like screeners or anything like that for House of, or for any shows really. So I'm not that cool. But okay, so all right. Well, Mandy will be here eventually, so we're just going to kind of get into it slowly. So let's start with the greens. And we might end up coming back once Mandy hops on if she has some thoughts. But basically, we start, you know, Alicent, she's getting sewn up. So we talked about this last week. She was cut while she and Helena were attacked at the Sept by the small folk who were kind of having a food riot situation, which was enticed by Rhaenyra and her sending food into the city. They got caught in the crosshairs, and Alicent ended up getting this cut on her arm, which is very much parallel to the cut that Rhaenyra got on her arm from Alicent. So it was pretty gross. And Grandmaster Orwyle is sewing up her arm, and she's telling him basically that, you know, she doesn't have a purpose. Essentially, she's like, you know, I've served my purpose, and now I don't know, you know, what I'm meant to do, kind of thing. And he's telling her she'll have a scar, but it'll be hidden. And that's like so typical of Alicent. You know, she keeps all of her scars hidden, and she has like a lot of them. And I started working on an essay actually about Alicent, so I might have this out to you guys next week, about Alicent and just sort of her mental state. And let me tell you, once I started making the list of the things that could be weighing upon a person, upon any individual, and then the fact that she has this, I mean, the list went on and on for like a whole entire page. So, I mean, the girl has got some issues. And I was thinking of titling it, Allie, are you okay? Are you okay, Allie? So Mandy would probably like that a lot. But yeah, so Alicent is, you know, she's struggling. She's trying to kind of, as per usual, trying to keep her head above water. But she has this nasty wound on her arm. And then, we realize there's literally rats in her chamber. They're on her table, just eating her food. King's Landing is infested with rats. And we suspect that, Larys Strong may be connected to that. If you are a subscriber of the Larys is a Green Seer, he potentially may be seeing through the eyes of the rats in King's Landing. He seems kind of connected to that idea. It's not my theory. Shout out to Joe Magician. That's his theory. And I totally subscribe to it because it really feeds into my other theories about Alice Rivers and that kind of thing. So, Alicent, she's just like, I got to get out of here. I have to get out of this nasty castle. She goes to Sir Rickard Thorne, who is sort of her Kingsguard that's, keeping an eye on her. And she tells him that she wants to leave the city. She wants to go to the Kingswood, and she doesn't want anyone else to go, no handmaids or anything. She just needs to get out of the city. And I love it. I think it's, she's following her instincts. If we recall, Alicent pointed out a few episodes back that summer is over well and true. So she's trying to just go to the woods so that she's trying to take advantage of berry picking season. And hey, I get it, Alicent. So she just wants to check out and go to the woods and kind of like zoom out and kind of reevaluate what her purpose is. Because in the last episode, Aemond dismissed her. He basically said, you don't need to serve, you've done your duty, so we don't need you here. Basically, he doesn't want his mom breathing down his neck while he's trying to usurp the throne from his brother, who he tried to murder. Totally normal. So Alicent and Rickard go out to the woods, and she's, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like it was a lot of time dedicated to Alicent sort of just zoning out and floating in the water. I don't really know how I felt about it. I do think there was some symbolic connection, of course, between Alicent and Rhaenyra, as there always is, with Alicent being submerged in water, while Rhaenyra is likewise descending into the pit of the fiery hellscape of the dragon pit. So there is some parallel, with Alicent and Rhaenyra, as there often is throughout the series. Those two are connected. They're tethered together no matter what. So Alicent's just out, she's just picking berries, and she doesn't know if she wants to go back. And like, I feel you, girl. So Aegon is healing, and he still looks pretty rough. But Larys has been basically pushing Grand Maester Orwyle to push Aegon. And Larys has also been encouraging him to, push himself, so that he needs to get strong, because they both realize that Aemond is a real threat. He's already tried to kill Aegon. So now, like, Aegon needs to take this seriously, and he needs to get strong. He needs to not be so vulnerable. And he does seem like he's actually healing quite fast. So I do attribute that to the blood of the dragon and their resistance to fire. And granted, Aegon, obviously, he got pretty well burnt, but he does seem to be healing rather quickly for the extent of his wounds and his injuries. Grand Maester Orwyle is working with him, doing physical therapy, trying to build up his strength so he can walk, because he had broken his leg. And the cane just buckles underneath him. So great. That's great. They should get some reliable equipment. Just saying, he's the king. Just saying. So we have them, and Larys comes in, and Grand Maester Orwyle's like, look, we're pushing him too hard. He's not ready for this. He needs to rest. And Larys is really pushing for it. He says, what did he say? He said something like, he'll not rest anytime soon, or something of that nature, which was kind of a strange remark. But I think that it implied that basically Aegon, he shouldn't rest. He should not rest easily right now. Unfortunately, he's in extreme danger. So, and I think Grand Maester Orwyle realizes that. I think everybody realizes that. We're starting to see that Aemond is tyrannical. He's very tyrannical. He's not a good ruler. We also see this parallel with Daemon, where Daemon has this insistence while he's at Harrenhal to be called king. Not even king consort is good enough. And likewise, Aemond is, he's being announced as he's, coming in, like he's having someone announce him, oh, Prince Regent Aemond. And this is as he's going into the courtyard where the Kingsguard are. And these were the Kingsguard who were looking after Alicent and Helena while they were at the Sept, and the food riots broke out, which Aemond essentially blames on the Kingsguard for, he's blaming them for the riot, which is not accurate. But we should also remember that these are the same guys who saw him in with the madame, his favorite madame in the brothel house. And so maybe there's like a sense of, dominance or payback or something that Aemond is trying to get over these guys. But anyways, he sends those Kingsguard to the wall. He sends them up to the wall. So there are brothers of the Night's Watch there to pick them up, and they are trading in their white cloaks for the black. You gotta feel bad for those guys. Like, those were the ones that were like Aegon's friends. They were just, some lordlings, kind of Klingon, like trying to be cool with Aegon. And then things got real fast. Like, they suddenly became Kingsguard, and they suddenly, these guys were not like living up to their vows or taking them seriously whatsoever. They were going out in their regular street clothes with Aegon and going out drinking and, going after women and that kind of thing, which are all strictly against the Kingsguard vows. So yeah, I kind of feel a little bit bad for those guys. Like, they were just trying to hang out. They were just trying to kick it. And now they're going to the Night's Watch. And they were only on the Kingsguard for like, a couple weeks. So yeah. And they did a terrible job. They really did. I mean, let's be real. So yeah, Jackie, they were Klingons. Straight up. Okay, let me see. My only problem with the Aegon burns is that he was supposedly wearing Valyrian steel, which is meant to be fireproof. Well, the armor was. I mean, the armor still looked perfectly fine after he got out from under it, but it was just like his flesh was like melted to the steel. So I guess, that's like a double-edged sword. What is that? What I'm trying? Yeah, a double-edged sword right there. A double-edged Valyrian blade right there. But Targaryens by nature are somewhat fire resistant. I know this is a very touchy topic. I don't want to speak inaccurately. Daenerys Targaryen herself has a miraculous resistance to fire. And we see that when she walks into Khal Drogo's funeral pyre. Is this something that is, widespread amongst Targaryens? I actually am starting to think so, because, and I will tell you, in this episode was kind of my inclination towards that. Hugh Hammer, who we see is the one who claims Vermithor. I just had this thought, while they're in, and we're kind of jumping ahead, but I'll just tell you right now. While they're in the pit, in the Dragonmont, Vermithor is like blasting flames everywhere and just going crazy. But Hugh kind of was a little bit more tolerant of it. And I do think that's because he's a blacksmith, number one. So he is kind of acclimated to being around fire and like heat and having flames like really in his proximity, versus most of the other people were not accustomed to that. And so but I do think, like, on top of the fact that Targaryens kind of have this resistance to fire, Hugh is also like acclimated to it because of his career. So I kind of think there's like something to that. Maybe some are more resistant to fire than others, perhaps, or, it's like a genetic, like, whatever, like, like some people, like your sister can be like a little bit more Italian on your DNA test kind of thing, I think my sister is. Anyways, I don't know. So I'm just saying things. But anyways, so that's my thoughts there. That I think, yeah, Aegon, he did get pretty well roasted beneath the armor. And then I think there was like excessive damage because of it, because like his flesh was all like clung to the armor. And then they're having to like rip that off, which was just, you know, terrible on top of terrible. But the Valyrian Steel and like Dark Sister, Blackfire, they came out perfectly fine. That was one of the things, like when they took Aegon out of the box they were carrying him in, he still had, Blackfire was like laid on top of him, and they took it out and it looked perfectly fine. And in fact, I think the Valyrian Steel like gets stronger with more exposure to fire and more exposure to blood. It's just kind of like a Valyrian blood, Valyrian Steel magic, really. It's the blood mages and that kind of thing. So, oh, I think Mandy is popping on here. Let's see. I'll give her just a second. It's connecting. So, and if you guys have any questions, definitely drop them in the chat. Yeah. I thought Valyrian was required to claim a dragon. Not necessarily. I mean, we saw that that Aegon, he can't speak High Valyrian because he's kind of a himbo. So he speaks to Sunfire just in like regular, the common tongue. So, okay. Hello, Mandy.
Hey y'all.
You look very beautiful.
Thanks. I'm sorry I'm late. I thought I'm on wrong time. I'm on Mandy time. Y'all know me. I'm on mystery. Is my mic okay? How's my volume, everyone? Because I'm having some computer difficulty.
You sound good to me. Yeah, let us know in the chat. Do we sound good? I guess I could have asked you sooner, guys. Karina in
wait, let me comment on that. The High Valyrian. So this question though, I love that question because the thing is we went in there and all Rhaenyra said was come in Valyrian. So she's the one that called the dragon because like with this Messiah complex, they have to go through Rhaenyra to get to the dragon. That's kind of like how, like with the Christ, you have to go through Christ to get to the God, the Father. So when you do that, when Rhaenyra came back with her heart and she loved the realm, so now it's about the heart. It's about, are you afraid of death? Are you afraid of, or even if you're afraid or you want to face it, you're ready for it. You're not afraid to die for the cause. And that's what they want. They want your heart. So you don't need to speak anything to the dragon because that bond is beyond words. It's a bond that we don't know. And then it was kind of interesting because when the old Valyrians were there and like all of the dragontamers, they're speaking in Valyrian, and all of the other family, they don't understand what's going on. And instead of them respecting the Valyrian blood, they said they respected the magic when it's actually about the blood. Because the old magic doesn't work anymore now that she's brought in the blood of the family and also the blood of old Valyria, because it really isn't the family. It's just old Valyria.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting, especially like with Hugh and Vermithor, because Vermithor, obviously he's used to being instructed in Valyrian. And so, but Hugh is not going to speak Valyrian. I mean, I guess there's the potential he could, because it's suspected that his mother is Sarah Targaryen, so she would probably know Valyrian. So there's the potential that she may have taught him some things, but at this point we have to approach it with the idea that no, he does not know any Valyrian. So how he and Vermithor might communicate should be interesting to see going forward.
Well, I think that it's about energy. It's about your heart. It's about how you feel. And the Bronze Fury, think about how his heart was. Hugh had a heart of love for his family. He was giving up everything he could to save his daughter's life. Now his heart is being callous. It's not callous completely, but it's like, it's not gold anymore. He doesn't have a heart of gold. He has a bronze heart now. It's lower. And he also feels lower. But he, when facing a dragon and feeling, he's like, you know what, I'm finally going to claim my I'm going to claim it. I'm going to tell you the truth of my mother. This whole episode was also about repentance, which we'll talk about it in every scene, but every single scene, it goes back to repentance. And he repented to his wife. He said, I didn't tell you the truth because he was ashamed of the truth, which that's what repentance is about. And you don't get that spirit, like you don't get the Holy Spirit. You don't get the spirit of that anointing until you repent and realize just how Rhaenyra repented, with Miss Saria. It was all about her coming to truth and understanding that the lies that you tell yourself and taking accountability. And in her speech, she's telling everyone, this is where you are, you could die. And they're taking accountability of their truth. So, and then you see them getting burned because it's fear. But anyway, back to Hugh. The thing with him is he, he did tell his truth. He claimed it and he went to him. But like, again, the words don't matter. It was also, though, I think it's not about, because neither one of them are the true Messiah. I think it's still, they did an old ritual, an old blood sacrifice. And Hugh's blood and Ulf's blood are higher in the bloodlines. Like they're less dense. They're not full Andals. But like the priests, when they came, they're holding on to the old ways, but like the old ways aren't necessarily the old, like, right. You know what I mean? They don't want to go with God. They want to hold on to tradition, which is the gods are placing them before. The gods are changing things. And whether we like it or not, that's what happens. We don't have control over higher powers. Who are we to judge the higher powers? But what's happening is that they're judging and judging.
I think Hugh is like, we're getting like way ahead of ourselves because I started talking about the Greens, but I do want to say, like, I think Hugh is like such a prime example of this because he, he's already lost everything. Like there's nothing more dangerous than a man who has nothing to lose. Like he was prepared to die, just as KFS says here. Like, yeah, I think he was just like done because his daughter has died, and he couldn't protect her. He couldn't protect his wife. They're trapped in the city. Like, this is the only thing that he can do. And even if he's meant to die, like, he was reminding me so much of my own husband in this episode. Like, can I fan cast my own husband as Hugh Hammer? Because like my husband is so the same. Like if anything ever happened to our daughter, forget about it. He'd be like, I'll go face the dragon. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. Like you would just be done. Like as a man, your daughter, like if you have, like men just feel differently about their daughter. They're protective over them. It just really like kicks in an instinct that I think women kind of have more so this connection with their sons. But Hugh lost his daughter. She died. And that's heart-wrenching. Like that's really tragic in many senses of the word. Not only that, she was a partly Targaryen child as well, so we can consider that as part of it. But he had this willingness to die for that reason. He was ready to face the dragon. And that's part of the thing that Rhaenyra had said. She was like, you have to be willing to die in order to claim a dragon. And he truly was. The rest of the people showed fear. The rest of the people weren't truly prepared. And like you said, like they're more programmed from the city with like the faith of the seven. That's like a more common, presence in their lives. And so this is a whole new ballpark. This is a whole new experience. And they probably were not going to answer Rhaenyra's call with like mentally or spiritually like prepared to die that day,
Well, so, the thing is like he was already dead and in a sense, and this is the whole concept of being reborn in his purpose, just how Rhaenyra was. And he is claiming onto his purpose that I do have a strong bloodline. I didn't know my father. And this whole episode though, like it goes into like in the Bible, it talks about God has a special heart for the fatherless, the widows, the orphans. And I'll bring up the verse later. I gotta pull up my notes. But anyway, so he really like cues on to the fatherless. And this is when he just finally says, okay, I face my truth. I need a new life, and he offered it to his partner, who is now a widow because she's actually, even though he's not dead, the old terms for widow is someone who's been abandoned. Or like you abandon the marriage. And the thing is that he left that. He did kill, like he kind of, in a sense, if you want to talk about ritual sacrifice, he sacrificed his wife for that too. But he did sacrifice his life. He wants to do it. And he like is being resurrected. And this is what turns Hugh the Hammer into the Hugh the Hammer from the books, which is like, you know, a lot of people were like, how does he do this? Why is he acting like this? What is that? You know, but he now claims his purpose, but then in the books you end up seeing he gets prideful with his purpose, just like House Valerian does too. You know, just how Damon gets, sorry.
Yeah, I do wonder, like, will he, I mean, obviously they're already fleshing out his story, and they work really hard in Fire and Blood to make Hugh appear to be like this really lowborn, sort of violent, like, you know, just unsavory sort of individual. But really we've already seen that like Hugh is actually a really good person. He is a father, he's a husband, he works hard, he's just a member of society that's caught up in the middle of this war. And he is, you know, he's willing to do whatever he can to protect his family. And similarly to like when we, you know, there's the idea with like the dragon bond, especially like we saw in season 1 with Daemon when he goes to Vermithor. It's right after their baby had died, Visenya, that, you know, Rhaenyra had lost the child in childbirth. And so a lot of people speculate that that was sort of his offering to kind of make this bond with Vermithor. Because it does appear that like Daemon, like I truly believe that Daemon bonded, you know, created a bond with Vermithor in season 1. But then Rhaenyra also in this episode, it seems like she sort of bonded with Vermithor as well. Like
she's sacrificing her children too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So like, yeah. So like they are, so similarly with Hugh also, like his daughter just died, and he also like, you know, abandoned his wife, but in a sacrificial way, like you were saying. So there is this sense he's given up his most valuable things. His child has died basically. So we could consider that a sacrifice in the same way we could consider baby Visenya being a sacrifice, because it's not like it's an intentional, you know, we're not sacrificing them to the Moloch per se, but these children have died. Their souls have died. And so Hugh gave up a similar thing as Daemon. So we can kind of see this parallel between them, where Hugh has given up his most important gifts, his most valuable things to make this connection with a dragon, or you know, bring his true identity into life, to have this rebirth.
In the contrast, though, Rhaenyra is bringing back the children who were sacrificed, who were not anointed, who were the least of them, to become and she goes, who will be the first of them? So this whole thing is, like the dragon is not, you know, is that the true God, or is Rhaenyra the God? And Rhaenyra is starting to act like in her purpose, but she's losing her heart. And Hugh is going in, and I think that might be part of it too, because Hugh has lost his heart too. He is callous. He's like a dragon egg. The eggs are hard. You can't break them, you know. And when you come in with this kind of idea of a hard heart, like you are fearless, and you're like Daemon, and where you see it in contrast, he's loosening his heart. He's being rebuilding through all his scenes, which we'll get to later. But that kind of puts the idea of, you know, like all these losses and sacrifices, you know, made you this hard heart, but the dragon's going to like light it on fire. It's going to like rebirth you into this new purposeful being and your greater anointing, or whatever you want to call it.
And, you know, also, I guess while we're just on this topic, like Mandy and I have so many thoughts about this whole.
Even though she did sacrifice like the children of her, those are her children, and you can't forget Luke, obviously, you know, she's still hardened by that, but like that is probably why Vermithor came to her, because she went out there with like a Targaryen, like they're raised for that. They're like, you go and you do it, this is what you do. Like they have kind of hearts like that already, but her father like never really connected with her, and you see like they have that as a line, like their children don't know their parents, and it kind of is a thing. And you know, obviously it pulls into the whole religion, but anyway, I just think it's like the fact that she's bringing back all these children who were sacrificed. That's probably they're like the Bible says, like a blemished sacrifice, like the unperfect. They're not perfect. And the first guy who went up there, he had disfiguration, which is another thing that you don't offer to the god. You have to offer a young mule, a young thing. You have to offer not older ones, and then a fresh one, and with no blemishes, and who's not been defiled, who's not been, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I was reminded too, and I think that the presence of the Night's Watch brothers in King's Landing was also like it had more meaning behind it than just them like coming there to take the Kingsguard brothers to the wall, but it also was there to remind us about the Lord's right to the first night, which a lot of the Dragonseeds are a product of. So the Lord's right to the first night is it was outlawed by King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne, and it was basically the Jus Prima Nocte, where similarly to like in Braveheart, where the Lord's right to go and sleep with a maiden who is his bondswoman, so his slave essentially, if these are like, you know, feudal lords, so he has the right to sleep with her on her wedding day prior to her husband, in hopes that he will impregnate her with, you know, as he is a lord or a more highborn individual, with his offspring, which are seen to be stronger or would strengthen the clan by having, you know, more children of his own amongst his own clan, right? So, and it was kind of this terrible thing. It's a pretty like fictional idea. Like they've kind of ruled it out as something that actually existed. But of course, it's been used in fiction like many, many times throughout history. And so the Lord's right to the first night was something that was practiced in Westeros. Even Ramsay Bolton in the, you know, Game of Thrones timeline, he is a product of the Lord's right to the first night. So there is also the idea that, or it's kind of a subtextual theme that, you know, many people have picked up on, is that the it kind of seems, this is how I see it, that a lot of these children who are products of the Lord's right to the first night were also sacrificed to the others, as, you know, sort of part of their pact to keep the others north of the wall, and then, you know, the regular people south of the wall. And so, and similarly to like Craster, who, you know, sacrifices his own children, but there is like the Knight's Gate, which is beneath, or the Black Gate, which is at the Knight's Fort, and it's beneath the wall. And so like it seems like that is where there was a lot of child sacrifice happening. So I believe that it was, you know, the illegitimate offspring, products of the Lord's right to the first night, and they were, you know, sacrificing those children because those are like strong children. Now, what the others do with them, actually, we never really find out, because like they kind of showed a little bit of that in Game of Thrones, but like,
well, they become their slaves. And in a sense, though, can I cut in on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in a sense, like what you're saying is, when they take that, they regardless or not, that woman, and if you think in magical terms, or like you connect with someone on a spiritual level every time you get in their body, have sex or whatever. And what happens with the others, they actually take over those bodies, make them like zombies, and turn them into part of their army. But at the same time, when the Lord stood before, like those bastard children, they still have magical properties, because we find out that one blood, like one drop of blood has as much power as a whole sacrifice. Like blood is blood. Like it doesn't matter. The magical properties are there. You know, if you think that it's less than that, you're actually like denying the property of the magic. And a lot of times when magic works, you need to have that heart. You need to believe. It's a heart of faith. It's a heart of love. It's a heart of like, I believe this will work. 1 drop or 1,000, it works. It doesn't require the amount. It just requires that your full belief, your full faith, your full courage to be bold, which we see those words mentioned in this episode. but like the child sacrifice thing, they're sacrificing, you know, their firstborn child. They're like basically saying they're denouncing their powers. They're taking over their wife and making them slaves by doing that. And then just how they did it. Craster's wives were his slaves. That's how you slave people, is doing stuff like that.
Well, and so it's kind of like a similar parallel to that with the Dragonseeds, being called back to Dragonstone. It's kind of a similar parallel, Ice and Fire, where Dragonstone is sort of the source, the volcanic source that the dragons are drawn to. They, the Targaryen ancestral home. And so there is this parallel. And I think that was an additional layer as to why the Night's Watch brothers were present in that in this episode, was just to kind of remind us of that, or draw some connections there. Because I definitely do think that there are some, and I made a video. I dropped the link in the chat. I made a video about that a couple months ago, and a lot of what I theorized in that was true. Hugh being connected to Jaehaerys. I didn't have the Sarah part in there, which it hasn't been said, I haven't seen any official report that it is Sarah that is his mother, but that seems like the likely source. Now, if Sarah is his mother, there obviously has been some changes to the canonical, the canon of what happened with Sarah's life, because as far as we know, Sarah made her way to Lys and became whatever, I don't want to get demonetized, so I'm trying to watch my words. Yeah. But a pillow maiden brothel.
Oh, sorry. Let me comment about the fact about the dragon's source of power. So the thing is the power, just how we don't know, and even if you watch the after show about this, he says, well, we don't know why the gods chose it, and I don't think we're ever supposed to know. The source of power is an unknown source a lot of times. When it's when they killed the night walker, all the other ones died when you got to the main source. So do you think Vermithor, because I watch How to Train Your Dragon, I have kids, so How to Train Your Dragon, there's a huge dragon who's the king dragon. He's the biggest dragon, and he's the source of all the power. So maybe after Vermithor dies, that's why they weren't able to hatch dragons again until, or something, or why they died out. Because when you don't have the main, the mother, the main type of person to follow, because you know what I mean? That's kind of an idea that the dragons follow the leader in a sense.
Yeah.
I would say, they can go wherever. The homeland doesn't matter. They're just made of this.
Well,
this
George
one bond.
George Martin he actually recently said in his blog post that dragons are not nomadic, and so they prefer to stay near Dragonstone. However, the dragon that is, at the Vale is kind of just a one-off, and that's not normal. So if he's up there to look for food or what, because maybe there's a shortage, or I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of sheep being fed to the others, but
Daemon sacrificed his wife.
You mean Rhea Royce?
Yeah. I mean, in that area, so that's why they're in the area.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. So look at this comment. So I know you're making kind of a joke here, but let me tell you, alcohol and spirits and these kinds of things are actually they're amplifiers to go into the spirit realm. They're amplifiers to open up the veil of your soul. Yeah, I just want to point that. So before we leave Hugh the Hammer, so with Vermithor, I'm working on the parody. It's the Quiet Riot. Come on, Vermithor, don't hear anymore. I'm So anyway,
Mandy, I got to tell you, I was talking earlier because I've been kind of working on, and I'm slowly working on an essay about Alicent and her mental state, and I was thinking I was gonna call it, Allie, are you okay? Are you okay, Allie?
Come on, Vermithor. But yeah, Allison State, you realize that she's not drinking though, because when they showed the scene with where you used to see Cersei drinking and she's drinking, and Allison's like not that at all.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second, I'll be right back.
Okay. So sorry, I'm seeing a conversation going on over here. I don't think, sorry, I can't find the exact comment, but I don't think that Addam's mom was a dragon seed. I don't think that that's the case. Someone was saying something like that. I think that the dragon riding gene comes through Corlys, because the Velaryons and the Targaryens have intermarried so many times throughout history. Even Aegon the Conqueror's mother was half Velaryon. So she was half Velaryon, half Targaryen. So there's a lot of intermixing of their families. So, the dragon riding genetic is probably in there somewhere down the line. And perhaps it's just like very recessive and Addam just randomly got it. Last week we had the Disputed Lands on and we had a really great conversation. It was very long-winded. But I made a quick, like a clip video follow-up where we talked about Addam's parentage and about his mother, and how we kind of suspect that she may have connections to the Children of the Forest and the Old Gods because of Addam's future in the story. I didn't want to give away too well, whatever. I mean, if you're a book reader, if you don't want to hear the spoilers, just whatever. But Addam ends up, he goes to the Isle of Faces eventually, later on in the story. And, it's very difficult to get to the Isle of Faces. There's very few people who have been there and tell the tale, right? And so somehow Addam is able to access the Isle, make contact with the green men who live there. We don't have a lot of details on what happened there, but it does lead me to believe that his mother may have connections to the Old Gods rather than being a dragon seed per se, because they allowed him to come there. So I don't know. Could be wrong, could be totally out of left field, but the Disputed Lands had some really great thoughts on that. So if you guys want to learn more, definitely check out our video from last week.
So do you want to, or I don't know what I missed. Did you talk about Addam already? Do you want to just talk about Addam as in general for the show?
Yeah, we can talk about Addam.
Yeah, because he obviously, we know where Addam comes from because he's the first mixed dragon rider. He's the first one to change. He's the first one in this new garden of Dragonseeds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also that the fact that he chose, not just because it was the brother, but I think that it was also, again, they're kind of like the same spirit. They even look more alike too. I think those two characters, and I think they did a good job casting them. But Addam was when so in the after one and in the after show when he's running on the beach. Actually, I want to slow-mo this and put it to Chariots of Fire, da, 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 because he looks so sexy here. I'm hardcore crushing on him.
No, okay, well, let's take a moment. Let's take a moment. This man, Clinton Liberty, I'm sorry, I'm probably old enough to be your mother, but literally, the man is fine. He is so fine. It's unreal. Them Velaryon boys are on another level.
I'm all about little boys who want some mommy issues because I'm like a mid-aged person going through divorce. Come on, come on.
This shot, this photo, because he like I was saying, Children of the Forest connections. He looks like a fairy. He's like a little fairy man. He's just so beautiful and perfect and kind of ethereal. And then he's kind and he's I'll serve you, queen. No questions asked. He is
yeah.
The man's perfect. Come on.
But so their heart though, the thing about him is he wants to be more. He wants to be more and wants to leave. He doesn't want to be just Valyrian. And that's the same kind of heart that that his brother had. And then that's, I think, why Sea Smoke goes to him, because he recognizes the same kind of energy and the same blood. Because it's the same bloodline, whether he's Targaryen or not. It's still the blood that he's used to being bonded with. That's why he went there and recognized it, because it's a safe thing for him. And I loved it that he was so this who am I to deny the dragon? And she goes in like roaring hot, and she's, who are you? What do you want? And she's like, I just want to serve. I just want to, like, he does what is right of the realm. And, you know, in a sense, but you see this up, like, she's in fear. She's afraid. And at the end, when Rhaenyra goes up to Vermithor, you see her back stepping in her purpose, leading like a shepherd. She leads, but like here, you see her still not. She's afraid. But Addam represents this hope, this new idea, that she is, or Rhaenyra is now able to recognize that she was right. Not only that, but she has like this hope. She's holding on to the promise of a new, better life, the promise that her father told her, the higher anointing, the higher calling, which is like a whole thing. So this whole idea and a lot of these stories, they refer back to the book of Isaiah in the Bible, and you'll see it. Like, I'm gonna say some quotes throughout, but like this whole thing. Oh yeah, hold on. What's this? Yeah, it will never stop. The Bible is like completely played out here. I'm gonna point out a lot of stuff. Make sure you say a lot in there. Is that Felicia? I think Christy. But anyway, back to Addam. Like, he is the first hope of this new creation, of the new way of writing, not the old gods, but the new legacy that, you know, Rhaenyra, I don't know if she thinks that she's the prince that was promised, but she believes in the family, believes in the greater line, believes in her father. She believes in her father's words. And she also, when telling them and giving Addam the ability to learn Valyrian, the ability to have all the rights, the ability to make the most of his talent. She's not like keeping him back or holding him under. She's giving him the trust, and she's opening it up to people that most other ones wouldn't, to give them the ability to let them and like be the best they can and reign and do that. Now, what kills Addam later is his pride. But in a sense, though, it was so beautiful how he was so submissive here, because although he knows power, he understands, but the fact that he is not the king. But a lot of that, realized that how his dad treated him, how his dad put him down, how his dad never recognized him. And even when his dad was there, he says, good job. Like, that's not like anything. He still didn't recognize him. So all of that is the same storyline with Rhaenyra. And the whole thing that fatherless, this whole episode is kind of really playing on this whole theme of fatherless. And that was actually training for them the whole time. That whole thing was training for him to serve his true purpose. You know, you don't look at it as the pains and the things. It was the training for him to be a better person, because the troubles and things we go through are meant for us to overcome, to literally put us through the fire so we are able to come out new. And this is what happened to him.
Yeah, he's just a great character, and it was really interesting, you know. And then you and I had talked last week, Mandy, with Amanda from the Disputed Lands about sort of the reincarnation cycle, the life, death, rebirth cycle that is somewhat seems pertinent to the death rituals of the Velaryons versus the Targaryens, because the Velaryons, they are sea and salt. They go back to the ocean. They give their dead to the Merlin King, versus the Targaryens who burn, and that's very final. Like, there's a finality to burning, versus like the potential of a second life that could come from being submerged in the ocean. And I had this thought after, you know, when I was rewatching, I was like, Laenor had left on a boat to go to Essos. Like, he faked his own death, and then he and Carl Corey had left on a boat in the ocean to leave. And then now we have Addam and Alan, who are, the illegitimate sons of Corlys, and very connected to the sea through their mother and through being a shipwright and a sailor and this kind of thing. And Sea Smoke hunts down and claims Addam here. And granted, the age difference, it wouldn't be like an easy like overlap, a seamless overlap. But there is something to this idea. We don't know what happened to Laenor. He leaves in a skiff out to sea, which is absolutely insane. And so there's the potential that he might have died. And so if he were sort of living by the Velaryon death rituals, the sea and salt, if he went into the ocean, like his body, if he died, he went into the sea, and then he's his spirit reincarnates into Addam, and then Sea Smoke like finds Addam and like hunts him down. He's like, you are my dude. So there's kind of this idea that maybe his, Laenor's spirit, Laenor's like Velaryon spirit did like sort of reincarnate and somehow attach itself to Addam. I don't know like the exact processes, but perhaps that's something that Sea Smoke has detected or picks up on, or something of that nature. We went into like a lot of depth about their death rituals of the Velaryons last week, and so it kind of sounds a little funny just in passing the short version, but yeah, there's something to that, and why Sea Smoke sought him out specifically. Like there has to be something there besides just like a touch of Targaryen blood or a touch of Dragon Rider blood somewhere down the line, because obviously like he rejected others. He wanted this guy specifically. So it leads me to believe that there is like some real soul connection between Laenor and Addam.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the idea too of the like, okay, so with burning, I mean, there's some Old Testament things that say ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and your soul is gone. But like with burning the body, you don't have a body to resurrect. You don't have something to resurrect. Exactly. So when you are able to, and I think like actually Daemon's wife, sorry, what's her name? The
Rhea or Laena?
Yeah, Laena. So her sacrifice was probably how Aemon got the dragon, because of the body and Luke. And wait, so, and like even Jon, when he was started to bond with the dragon and ride the dragon in Game of Thrones, and he sacrifices his wife, Ygritte, because they talk about being married. And the thing is like they don't burn the bodies, they do after, but for sanitary reasons, or
well, no, that's actually to prevent them from being reincarnated as White Walkers. So there is sort of like a a second life idea in that even of itself.
Yeah, so exactly. So the thing is like, I think that whole burning of the dead, because it talks like those, ashes to ashes, you'll be dust in the end. But if you have bones, if you have body, and like like the prophet Ezekiel and the dry bones in the valley of death and the underworld, and even we saw the dry bones actually, and with Ulf, we saw a bunch of dry bones there, and the cosmic egg and whatever, but we'll go to that later. But we have all these bone things, and even Ned's bones being brought back, like let's talk about that situation, or the bones in the Mordor, but it's not blood, it's blood and bones in the Mordor for Harrenhal. But anyway, the fact is you have to have a body, you have to have something to resurrect. It doesn't matter, because flesh can be made, and it talks about that extensively, how they make flesh, but it also can enslave you, obviously. But yeah, the bones are part of this experience. And like even in Moses, like the devil came down to try to find Moses's bones, but he couldn't, which that is kind of, symbolic of Rhaenyra, because Rhaenyra and Daemon, I mean, let's talk about you want one or the other to win, but ultimately they're both not the Messiah. Jon Snow is, we see that, we know that, but we're so set up in this episode to make them one or the other. One's good, one's bad, which I think that's what we need to really start to understand, this whole idea, because there's resurrection through both sides, and they both go through these like pilgrimages, and just understanding the greater themes here is what it's about, and how they all do it differently. But yet when their heart is broken, when their heart is alive, when they're feeling prideful, they get shut down. When they get too serving of the self versus serving of the realm. The realm is the god in Game of Thrones, or in this whole series to me. It's not the dragons, it's not the trees, it's not the old gods, it's serving the realm. And like that's what it's about, is serving one another. And when you start to serve one another for this whole idea, which Adam gives to Rhaenyra as her purpose, so that one can unite, we can unite together, we can be together. Like, we'll unite the family, we'll unite, what you thought was wrong. I'm going to take the least of them. I'm going to create a new, better kingdom with no starvation, where we work together to fix the fields and make a better kingdom, and we're not at war killing each other and pillaging, and we have prosperity, which her father did, but he did it in fear.
Well, and that's something we've definitely talked about many times, especially when it comes to like Alice, and the idea of like a sovereignty goddess or like a sovereignty queen. Like Rhaenyra is a sovereignty queen. The sovereignty goddess is like the land, the embodiment of the land, which we have kind of discussed, or I basically theorize that is Alice Rivers. She is like a sovereignty goddess, a representation of the land. So that's why she can sense all the things that are going around, in the Brackenlands and at Mori and Lambswold and all these things. She can feel what's happening. And, like Harrenhal and the Isle of Faces, those are like, power centers, nexus of power in the realm. And so if you envision the realm like as a body or as a woman, like, yeah, there is power in that. And then also we have that, yes, Wild Marjoram, we are going to get to that for sure. Also we had Daemon in that moment where he sees, he has another vision or another dream. He sees Viserys, and Viserys comes to him, and he's all decrepit and everything. And then he's asking him about the crown. He's like, do you still want this? I never wanted it. Do you, it's, all this stuff. The way he was describing it was like the One Ring, like from Lord of the Rings. It was like the One Ring, it will corrupt you. And it's kind of that idea has come through with like the Iron Throne or with the crown itself. And we saw that kind of with Daenerys. Like, I think that was a kind of popular topic of discussion around like Game of Thrones, and how that might have been like the corrupting force that sort of eroded her mental state, kind of, or just the idea of it. But we really see that come back in this episode with Viserys and him offering the crown to Daemon, where it's almost like Boromir. It was reminding me of Boromir, like the temptation of like wanting the ring and like how it could corrupt you, or resisting taking it, and you're a more stronger, powerful person. I don't know if you guys picked up on that.
Okay. Because let me first talk about this, because the Red Queen comment, I got that from Miss Arya, which we'll talk about her later, but I like that you brought up that character. But so like Daemon, though, when he got offered the crown, I think Daemon's heart is not, it was not like, even though he's so like, he's not aware of his heart is callous, his heart is based on everything else, but his true heart, the heart he doesn't know, the heart he denies and doesn't ever respect, why he runs away from Rhaenyra, why he runs away from his brother, why they're like agents to trigger him, is because he truly does love them, but he's afraid to love because he has to hold on this whole outer perspective based on works and deeds, and he's such a character that's works and deeds. So is Adam, and that isn't what gets you a heart. A heart is repenting and saying it, all these things. Even when Daemon's talking about Oscar and the Tullys and like how he's the liege lord, oh, he follows your rules, he follows your rights, he does this, he did that, he's did all these works and deeds, but like he's like, but my heart, I don't love you, Daemon. Like, you have to love your father. And I think that's also why Adam too, he doesn't love his father, but his brother does love his father. And despite, what he does, they have hearts that are burdened, are heavy, hearts that are like literally the eggs of a dragon. But Ulf, why? Like, when he cracked the egg hatch with the whole like universal, like, he became an egg himself in a sense. Mm-hmm. He was ready to die.
And reborn.
Not afraid. Yeah.
Ulf became Mithras. He was born of the cosmic egg, and I was obsessed with that. It was awesome. He had his own rebirth scene in that moment, and with the eggs being involved, it was perfect. I loved it.
But like Daemon's heart, though, like he does love. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent with that. I just wanted to say though, he does actually want to. He doesn't want to be king. He wants to share. He wants to be mighty with his brother. His whole goal was to marry and have, true reign, true Rome. And even though he's like, yeah, I got to do that. I have to be like I have to be the man. I have to, play that role. I think that's kind of, it's an anointing itself, because like in the Bible, it talks about the woman, the wife is the neck, the head is the man is the head. And then like they connect together through God or through the anointing. So it's kind of an interesting theory, because even though I say I hate Daemon all the time, this episode made me kind of like forgive him. I don't want to say I love him, but I forgave him, for he knows not what he does. Like, he doesn't even recognize what he's been doing the whole time is trying to share the realm with his brother, with everyone. He's trying to like create glory, but instead of being multi-level equal, equal players to him and his brother, they just don't feel equal. And that's a battle for being heard, for being, recognized, for proving yourself. And that's exactly what he goes through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I'm just loving this conversation in the chat. I think Northern Tommy said the Yellow Queen, and I'm like, the Yellow Queen, like the Yellow King, like from True Detective and just other like the Yellow King like mythology, because there's a lot of it. But that's kind of funny, because that's kind of connected to Alice, because she's like, you'll die in this place, and like the Yellow King is like this weird deathly, like, I don't even know. I don't even really know like how to describe the Yellow King.
Let's just talk about Harrenhal and get that out of the way while we're talking about it, because like
okay,
so we're jumping a lot about.
We'll talk about Harrenhal. So Daemon, okay, let's see. Let me pull up a picture. So Daemon goes to Harrenhal. He's at Harrenhal, excuse me. The Riverlords show up. He's called them. And little Lord Oscar Tully has shown up, and he's just a little guy. His grandfather has died. He is the new liege lord, and Daemon, kind of disrespected him, threw some shade before, like when he had come to visit. And so now Oscar's kind of playing on that. He's like, oh, well, you treated me like I'm just like this little guy who doesn't know anything. So yeah, I know I'm young. I know, like, he's really like milking it, and sort of painting this whole picture, kind of backing Daemon into a corner. So Daemon really needs, the armies of the Riverlands, and all the lords are there, but they all hate Daemon so much, just because he sent Willem Blackwood to sort of bring them to heel, and Willem got a little violent. And we gotta say, I mean, Willem, like, first of all, he's grown on me exponentially, like, throughout this season. I really like him, so I'm kind of bummed about what just happened. I was really liking his little buddy comedy that he was having going on with Daemon, and I'm sad to see him go. But let's be real, the man had a violent streak. Let's be real, he was a little bit violent since he was a child. I mean, him and the Brackens. It was interesting to find out, though, that they didn't kill Amos Bracken. And so going back to episode like 4 or whenever kind of Daemon sent him off to do this, and we had that excellent shot of Amos Bracken, and like Caraxes was behind him, and they were like, we're not bending the knee to you, yada, yada. And Daemon says, I didn't think they'd be so eager to die. And so I presumed that they had killed them, right? That seemed like that was kind of like what the guys chose. Like Daemon basically gave them the option: bend the knee, or my dragon and I will roast you. And they did not want to bend the knee. So it's interesting that they were still alive. Thoughts? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? In the chat, let me know what you guys think about that. But I thought it was really interesting, because it also like lessens the severity of the like the heavy-handedness of Daemon, right? Like, he didn't actually kill those Bracken lords. So, I mean, yeah, they went around and did some barbarism, but like they didn't actually kill those guys. I think that's kind of important. We talked about last week how Daemon is kind of in this, he's in this moment where he has an opportunity. Daemon is obsessed with the legacy of the three heads of the dragon, like the legacy of his forefathers, of Aegon the Conqueror, of all, you know, the Valyrians at large. Like he spent all his time studying these old texts and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things about Harrenhal that's factually like very prominent is the fact that Aegon the Conqueror burnt Harrenhal, Maegor the Cruel burnt Harrenhal, and Daemon is the third Targaryen to go to Harrenhal and, you know, with his dragon. And so part of like the three heads of the dragon idea, like Daemon might be this, you know, he has the opportunity to be a third head of the dragon. What have the first two heads of the dragon done at Harrenhal? They burned it. Daemon, we all, you know, are warned, oh, he's such a violent man. He does all these violent things, but he hasn't burnt Harrenhal. And I think that that's really important about his character, because he hasn't done that. He had an opportunity to. That's not how he's choosing to roll. And I think that that's really important overall for his experience, because later Aemond will be coming and things don't go so well. So I think that this is, you know, a significant moment.
Harrenhal represents, like, in a sense for them, it's like a Jerusalem. It's like imagine like they were Israel, and like in Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, which I really encourage y'all, you know, whether you believe or not, just pick up the book of Isaiah and go Google it, check it out, because a lot of these themes are completely there, and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, this was said, this was that. But like in Isaiah, what happens is, and a lot of Game of Thrones, they talk about the lords, right? And they're referring to the lords, and they're referring to the Lord Paramounts and all these ranks. There's ranks too in the Bible as well. But like Israel doesn't get rebuilt. It hasn't been rebuilt yet. And even in our whole storyline and in the end of Game of Thrones, they're going to have to break the wheel and rebuild it. But it talks a lot about like these people, men work and work, but with no purpose. They're not getting done because they're blindly working. They're not working for this greater purpose, which Rhaenyra is presenting that purpose, but she also is not, she's hardened and callous her heart. But Daemon, it says like all these things will happen, and it talks about like this restoration and a promise for it. But he believes like he actually does have that heart and believes, and the reason he hasn't burned it is because he wants that glory. But he believes more in the place than the glory of the higher anointing. He believes more in the man than the glory of the realm. You know, he wants to make it glory for his name, not glory for the realm, whereas earlier, you know, that was the point. It has like hope. Harrenhal is the only place big enough. It has a lot of good things about it, but it's been lost, torn to pieces. The house has been broken, and because they haven't been following their house, they haven't been taking care or holding stewardship where they should have. They gave it to other people. The strong man came in and took their house, and now it's ashes and ruin. And the only way back is for him to repent, which he doesn't here. In this whole scene, he's given the chance. He actually calls. So he calls Oscar Tully out, and, you know, Oscar comes back around, but he's like, okay, you know what? I will do that. We'll follow you because I stay true to my promise. But then he calls out them to repent and confess and tell me what you did. Take, you know, admit it. And they don't. Well, I've only was doing what Daemon told me to do, which he was, you know, he did. But when Daemon was called to actually repent and say, you know what? Yeah, I give you mercy. I put my hand of grace on you. That's fine. He couldn't. You know what I mean? Like he didn't do that. And until you do that, your house cannot stand. Until you own up for the things that you did to let your house fall, or the things that even your fathers did, because yeah, it's not his fault it fell, but we all hold on to that generational thing. And that's what's in our name. That's what's in our blood too. We're generational curses, if you believe them or not. They are a thing, and they are very true. And we carry the weights of our family. We carry the weights and same sins and same kind of energy and the same reactions, you know, the mother wound, the father wound. That's what we do. And when you start recognizing it in this scene, he recognizes, like, you know, he feels, and he says, and he actually responds. And that's the whole thing about this, all these dreams or scenes with his brother. He is able to talk. But when Oscar Tully came up to him and said, isn't that what you want? He just looks at him. When Rhaenyra says, claim me, he just looks, he doesn't respond, which is a narcissist trait, by the way. But the point is he doesn't speak. He doesn't say anything. But here he's starting to finally repent. The problem is, we'll get into that later, but I just wanted to point out that idea.
Well, yeah, and you notice in this scene too, like when he goes or when he sees Viserys this time, it goes much more easily than like the first vision he has of Viserys where he's like trying to run out of the room and he's like, open the door, open the door. The second vision he has of Viserys, they sort of break down and they're weeping with each other. This third vision he has of Viserys, he just is like, he's like walking and the goat, like we get Return of Black Phillip. Hey, shout out Black Phillip. Return of Black Phillip at the top of the stairwell. He walks in. Viserys is sitting there with the crown and he's all decrepit and all this. Daemon doesn't even hesitate. He's just like, oh God, here we go again. And he just walks over and, sits down with him and he's like, what is this? Like, not just gonna help but laugh when he said that. What is this? Because he's really like, okay. What are we doing here? Like, let's figure out what's happening. So he is like opening himself. He's opening the door. He's making himself more receptive to this idea of spirituality and like the closure that he gets from it, especially when it comes to Viserys, because he loved his brother so much. And that's like really his great wounding is this fallout he has with his own brother, and the loss that he feels that's connected to that.
Yeah. He feels like love is weak. He feels like it blinds him when really it's just his own pride that blinds him. Love is a strength, when you're using it properly. But like, that's why he runs from everybody that he loved or that had a chance to love him. Even like Miss Arya and their relationship, he just did like, he didn't want to do it. And I don't necessarily think it was a prideful thing. I think it was that he does have that love inside of him. He's just afraid of it. Like how they're afraid to die on the dragon because he knows that like love can kill people. It's the easiest way to kill someone, but it's also like the most powerful. And he always did love his brother. He did love his men. He does love, even though here though, the Riverlands, he says, oh, I don't need men, I need swords. But he loves his position. He loves his battles. He loves a lot of things, but he just is, he doesn't understand that love is not one definition. It's it's omnipresent. There's agape love. There's all the different types of love, But he loves the purpose. He loves the glory. He loves his family. He just doesn't love individually. But you see now in contrast, Rhaenyra treated Luke or Jaehaerys like this. Rhaenyra started acting very much like Daemon. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Back to Harrenhal.
Okay. But yeah, so basically, yeah, Daemon, he's faced with an ultimatum by the Riverlords. They're basically like, look, you have to make even. You have to what's the word I'm trying to think of? He has to dispense justice, and he also has to like feel the weight of his own decisions because he's the one that ordered Willem to, commit these crimes in the name of the crown. Willem may have gotten a little carried away, just as Daemon admits he gets a little carried away. He's an overzealous kind of man. But part of that is, and I also think that like some of this energy, especially if we consider Alice to be like a sovereignty goddess and considering like the things that she said, these are crimes against the innocent, she was sensing these things that were happening. And so it's almost like that deal that he has with Alice, because obviously they sort of have a deal with each other. He told her in the last episode he needs help. She goes and her healing arts, takes her healing arts to Lord Grover Tully, and then all of a sudden, he dies. And so clearly they have kind of like a deal amongst themselves. And so I think part of Daemon's actions were holding up his end of that deal. Like Alice had gone, she made the Riverlords available. She sent them his way. And, now he has to do his part to make up for it. He needs to dispense that justice to even the scales and to also face up to his own responsibility and his own part in that, in the horrific actions of the Blackwoods, right? So it's almost a responsibility thing, which is very important to his overall like healing arc anyways.
Yeah, it's like, and it talks about like the true scales are like judge if you judge another one of like how you judge someone else, you will be judged. So that's happening here, and it's coming back to hit him just the same as Alice. You know, just how Allison did. She's got judged, and it comes back in actions. It comes back in words, and I don't think Alice or Allison, you know, with Rhaenyra, but I think Alice, though, I don't think that she did that on purpose. I actually think that she went to help, but death comes for everyone, and when you don't least expect it, you know, it was expected then. But I think it's more important to think not of Alex's works, but the fact that Daemon thinks it's for him. Daemon thinks that he's owed that lead, thinks that he can control Alice and that she's working for him, and that, you know, I think that's the higher thing we need to recognize here, not if Alice did it or not, because she's obviously like an agent of God, angel, whore of Babylon. I don't know. She kind of looks, she's got like the agent of death. I think she's more of a death figure, but she is like death. She did use her works. She's the agent. She's death. You know, she's killing Daemon, poisoning him with the food and the bread he eats, poisoning him with the stuff. She's killing his ego. And it wasn't for him. It was for, the problem is, the reason he hasn't died yet is because he thinks it's for him. He needs to realize that the crown isn't for him. All these things that he's doing aren't for him. They need to be for the realm. And that's where that is. And
becoming more...
Yeah, and when he recognizes and says, please, I need your help, I can't do this alone. When he realizes that he didn't bring all the glory, it was him leading all of his men to glory. Like, he, again, is taking everybody else's glory, not giving everyone credit. He's not, even when he went to go say to Oscar, you know, oh, come in and let you speak, he cuts Oscar off. He doesn't give him credit. You know, I'm bad at cutting people off, you know, I will say that, but like, I don't do it purposely. I'm just excited. And I also have ADHD, but anyway, but like, you know, he did it to silence him because he didn't care. Like, that should have been his moment. That was his first time speaking out, you know? And Daemon then says, okay, well, yeah, I acted bad. But then that's when Oscar actually talks to him and gives him a chance. And he says, okay, you know what? I'll work with you because you did repent. You did do this. So because the first time he doesn't respond to him, and that's when he starts being against him. And then when finally Daemon said, okay, then he starts to work. But he's like, you know, I'm doing it not for you. I'm doing it for the realm, because of the oath, because of the princess, even despite whether I like you or not. And then that's where he should have learned, despite whether I like you or not, you know, despite whether you're a lowborn or highborn, you are part of this greater purpose.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's you can see that the Riverlords definitely have their own way of doing things. They are honorable. There's a lot of like if we look at the Blackwoods and the Brackens, it's always kind of like evening the scales, like we're saying, or balancing the scales. And it is funny because they wore their armor, and, you know, first of all, the Tullys, they are fish is their sigil. But, you know, fish have scales, and then also their armor was really like scaled. They had these really beautiful detailed armor, and the scales were really prominent. And so it's kind of like that idea being pushed that into our faces, the balancing of the scales. And it's up to Daemon if he's willing to do his part to balance the scales, which means, you know, dispensing justice on Willem Blackwood, despite the fact that was his friend, you know, or like they were kind of buddies. They were men of a similar nature, and they understood each other. And so, but that Willem also fed into Daemon's, worse nature, right? Like that's why they got along, because Daemon was like, okay, I can get this guy to do my bidding. And that's Daemon's darker nature. That's his dark serpent, right? He's not like,
go ahead.
Oh yeah. He's not looking, you know, he's not doing anything he's not benefiting anyone when he's using that mentality or that energy or making orders from that energy, versus
it's the great lies. It's the great deceiver. It's the great, he deceived him. It's like the devil versus, and like the same with, like, you see that all around in both areas, but it's like they send you agents to do the work and bidding, but it isn't for, again, men. And when the whole fish thing comes, it's like, are we fishers of men? Are you fishers of men? No, he doesn't want men. I want swords. Like, he doesn't care. I just want swords. I want things. I want things done. And like you said, it plays into that. And he sees the crown as an object, but he's not understanding this whole greater, deeper thing behind it. And like this,
I think he's starting to. I think that's like that with that vision with this vision with Viserys really like drove that home to where now he's realizing, like, it's just like we were talking about last week. It's not a prize to be won, but a burden to bear, you know, and he's finally starting to grasp that concept, even though it's something he's wanted his whole life. He realized like, as much as he desires it and as much as like it's sort of corrupted everything around him, corrupted his brother, like even like physically Viserys was corrupted from that power. And so even Daemon's desire for it is corrupt, you know, in nature. He just doesn't even realize that. He doesn't even realize that what he wants is only terrible. And we can see that in action, like through Aemond, because Aemond, you know, he's becoming more and more tyrannical as he is like allowed to be the person on the throne, right?
Yeah, it goes back to the, like, you know, follow me and I'll make you become fishers of men. And it goes back to the, are you doing it for others or doing it for yourself? Or are you doing it for your glory, prideful reasons, or the realm, for the greater good of ever? The you know, like in this whole redemption arc or whatever, like the whole series of the Messiah is you have grace. They give you grace, your grace, the king and queen. They give you the grace. You have it already. You just need to obey. And he doesn't want them to obey. Instead of them coming with a full heart, he's threatening and deceiving and playing tricks and lying and going about it for selfish gain or to build alliances versus building a better realm and truth and justice and whatever. And when it says like face to face, now he's facing it. Thank you for putting that in there. But yeah, he's coming back to this point. And there's another Bible verse that talks about, or several of them talking about, like the old men having dreams, the young boys having visions, and then like also the old will look like the least to them. And Daemon here is also afraid of getting old. This is one of his biggest fears. He doesn't want to lose his youth. He doesn't want to, you know, go back to this weak individual that he sees him, but he's seeing now that like there was so much other strength that he doesn't know. And Alice is like leading him in this forest that is that way. And like we also see the fish, the whole like this shepherd thing. We see his daughter's or Bela, when she's not following the other men and she's looking for the dragon, but like you see again dry bones, you see a burnt sheep offering. And then contrast to that when Mysteria is handing off the reed to House Valyrian, and well, I'll talk about the reed thing later, but they put it in and disguise it in a basket of fish because they're fishing for men. So it kind of is this whole like bigger, broader things. It's so really interesting and fun to me. And I mean, I've been just honestly like, okay, so when I started, I've been reading it between Isaiah, Proverbs, a little bit of Psalms, and the book of Luke, which I said before, when Lucerys was finally left or died and all the things that happened with that, there's so much in the book of Luke. And that's the thing about like the Bible, when you go back to it, like what you thought you read and now it comes back to you in a whole other broad perspective. But it's really something that just gives you this whole overall tone and idea and this otherworld knowledge between all these things that we like and can relate. And you know, I'm not pushing anything. I hope you don't think that. I'm just like trying to share knowledge of greater esoteric wisdom and greater connections to the better of the realm.
Well, I think no, and I love it. And I do think that we can learn so much more. And I think that the sort of biblical themes are definitely really like in our face overtly in this season, in season 2. you know, we've been talking about it all season long, going back to the first episode, and even at the end of season 1, you know, the death of Lucerys. There is some really like biblical themes to that idea, even like connecting Lucifer to Lucerys, or even just by their names, but also the themes, you know, the descent to hell, you know, the fallen angels. We've talked about it throughout all of our streams throughout the season. So definitely, if you haven't watched the older episodes, check them out. But yeah, and then of course Mandy and I mean, that's kind of our whole thing, is just examining like mythology from these, you know, that are connected to these stories that we cover, you know, whether it's Yellow Jackets or House of the Dragon. And the two stories have been sharing so many themes, which is, well, convenient for us, but yeah, it's all Greek to me. Carl says, you know, there's definitely Greek. I'm seeing you know, Egyptian, but we're also seeing a lot of these biblical themes. So in episode 7, definitely like, so that was one of the things Mandy and I really were catching, were the Eleusinian mystery vibes that were going on with Rhaenyra, and with the whole ritual that happened at the dragon pit with the Dragonseeds. So should we get into that, Mandy? Do you think we're pretty much, I think we're pretty much done at Harrenhal.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more I can say, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. We'll see what happens next week. I'm excited to see where things go with Harrenhal, because obviously we're going to come to like a culmination next week, which is the finale. And so what's going to happen is going to be very interesting. But I think that'll be like the end of Daemon's, you know, round 1 adventure there, in my opinion. And it'll be interesting to kind of examine it. I'm excited to overall examine Daemon's time in Harrenhal, and I'll probably end up like making a video about that in and of itself. But yeah. That sounds pretty nice. Feta and grape leaves. Okay, we'll catch up with the chat, and then we'll get into the Rhaenyra stuff. The Greeks and the Egyptians had lots of exchange over the years. Yeah, and there are parallel themes like with their mythology even as well. I made a video recently, if you guys haven't watched it, it's called An Eye for an Eye. It's about Daemon and Aemond and the Egyptian mythology that is in their particular storyline between the two, you know, the uncle and nephew battle. So if you guys want to see that, if anyone wants to drop a link for that in the chat. Let me see. You're gonna make me go raid the fridge. I know, right? Time for night snacks. This is later than we normally stream. As you guys know, we normally do Monday mornings, but you know, we're changing it up. Yeah. And now I need a snack though.
Yeah, I like this idea here too, because the Greeks and Egyptians had a lot of exchange. I mean, there is just, you know, there are a lot of exchange, and the Greeks and Egyptians are both in, you know, featured in the Bible too, and all these ideas that are centered in it. And there is wisdom, like they don't deny, you know, I think a lot of Christians, like, they get it mixed up, because it's like those gods, you know, they do exist, but they were also, to me, and like, they're created by men, they're created by religions or people in power. And like, there's, you know, the thing is that like Jesus doesn't, yes, he was the true Christian, but like even Christianity now has like most of us, I mean, I'm guilty, you know, we end up bleaching things, or like changing things, or not knowing things and getting down to the root. And like, you know, like when you tell stories or something, that like things change over time. But like just the idea that there's higher above all that, you know, it's just like, that's what I think. But I want, like, all roads lead there. They all connect. Everything is truly connected in my mind. And like, once you start seeing these connections, like, you can't unsee it. You know, you're awoken to this whole other idea of, it's not about me. It's not about what I do. It's about what, you know, being uniquely you, being the character you were supposed to be, owning your purpose, not fitting into what the lords or servants or the old gods or the new gods want, you know, like not having to be stuck to your name, be more than that.
Yeah,
and
just
have no fear to be more, like this episode says.
Exactly. Just be your authentic self, you know? Yes. So, where was this? What did I say? Okay. So, Plato learned about Atlantis from an Egyptian priest. His name was Solon. Alexander was pharaoh, and the city of Alexandria was the center of learning for centuries. So, yeah, I mean, Egypt and Rome were strongly connected, and Egypt was even like a Roman, you know, like province or whatever they called it specifically. But there are some major parallels, and hopefully at a certain point I will work on a video for this, between Rhaenyra and Cleopatra, but not only that, between Alicent and Livia Drusilla, and they had their own dynamic that was going on, and I really think that heavily influenced the way that their relationship was written in Fire and Blood, because there was an age difference between Livia and Cleopatra, just as there was between Alicent and Rhaenyra in the book. So that might be something that we get into at a certain
point. That's, you know, that's the story. The story is, a lot of people say written by the winners, but then there's some mentions that the stories are written by the losers. But at the same time, the story is the story. And I think it's the same old story as the end of time. Like the Battle of Babylon and Israel, like you don't learn until you're fully destroyed or you're fully killed. Then you're able to learn and resurrect your old ways to the past. And that's what it's about. Like, I mean, I didn't learn till I lost, or, you know, I'm still learning now. In fact, now it's all being revealed. Like I had to lay down a pride and lose my house and lose my marriage and like lose things. And I'm going to lose friends, you know, like a lot of my friends I had before in the fandom, I will, you know, say sorry. Like I wasn't good. I wasn't not in a bad place because I didn't like learn. You know, I learned the only reason I had to recognize and reflect on these things, like Damon, like people or everyone, is because you have to be hurt. You have to feel these kinds of things to acknowledge that, and then to start to acknowledge other people. Like Aaron and I, we have also, you know, we've gone through it a lot, but we correct each other. We, you know, rebuke each other. We hold each other accountable. Like she's one of the best people in my life that, you know, we also lift each other up, but we also are not afraid to tell each other the truth. And that's what it's about. And like the age old time story, it's like whether you see it's all like paralleled, but it's about destruction and ending, and it's about rebuilding. You know, your end doesn't mean you can't rebuild. And I think that's what you need to see here, because, you know, regardless of what happened, like you won't, if you come to the truth and you want to serve better, you want to help everyone, then, you know, you won't be forsaken. You might have to go with your judgment. Death might be your judgment, but there's a chance of resurrection. You have to like have faith, and faith that you can rebuild. Like, and I see that Damon here has that kind of faith. Like, even though he's getting all these things around him and he's blind to resurrecting. He's blind to acknowledging. He's blind to admit that he failed. He doesn't want to admit, like, I can't do this without you, until recently. And that's literally what he said. And like also, like it says in the judgment of the final salvation, of like he said, one of the quotes he says, he's looking for you. Where are you? He goes, I'm here. So it's really like touching, actually. Like my heart, like I cried when I started reading this because I felt it, and it just plays out in my life, and I feel it, and I felt it through Game of Thrones, and I felt it through the story, and I felt it through some Greek and Egyptian philosophy. I just feel it. But like the fact is that these things come back full. It's the same old story. So yeah, humble myself. I like this. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting into like some things, but like I come here just because I do want, you know, us all to be better, everybody. And I think that when we just talk about, oh, I like this, I like that, oh, this is how I feel about this story, we're missing the point. You know, I think it's important to recognize how we feel. You know, how you feel is different than I feel sometimes, but the point is to understand these feelings, and how there's always the great opposite. There's always the great accuser. But at the end of the day, they're just as us. They're just the same. In fact, we're no better than them. And that's kind of what Rhaenyra is going through. And actually, Damon's being humbled. with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I'm sorry, but
yeah,
I'm talking about all the things. I'm not just talking just Bible, but I'm saying it's not dragon. It's everything.
We do both. We're here for an all-around spiritual experience. That's what you get.
Yeah, it just literally said the greater point is not the greater thing is the storyline, not the characters.
And also, yeah, you know, we're about to it's about time for the annual Eleusinian Mysteries on Fayfire. So, you know, that's what we're here to do tonight. You guys happen to catch us on a great night for this. So if you guys are unaware, Mandy and we also cover a little show called Yellow Jackets, and Yellow Jackets shares a lot of themes with House of the Dragon. And one of the things that we've talked about quite a few times in our live streams, or we've even done like dedicated streams, is the Greek mythology that is really present in Yellow Jackets, and how that connects back to the Eleusinian mysteries. So let's talk about this a little bit before we get into the Rhaenyra section, just so you guys can kind of understand where we're coming from with some of the stuff we're referencing. So the Eleusinian mysteries are it's a mystery religion that is surrounding the myth, the life, death, and rebirth process that is at the heart of the myth of Hades and Persephone and Demeter. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with that myth, which I bet most of you guys here are very familiar. I'm sure you've heard of Hades and Persephone. Hades is the god of the underworld, and Persephone is the goddess of spring. Her mother, Demeter, is the harvest goddess, the grain goddess. And basically, Hades abducts Persephone, takes her to the underworld, and while she is there, Demeter, you know, she's searching for her daughter. She basically abandons her duties as the grain goddess and the harvest goddess, and the earth becomes barren. It turns to winter. And so, and the people are starving and all of this. And Demeter is just trying to find her daughter. Well, eventually she finds her in the underworld, and she tries to bring her back. But Hades convinces Persephone to eat a few of the seeds of a pomegranate. And if you eat the food of the underworld, then you are bound to the underworld. And so since she had only eaten a few of the seeds, she was only bound to the underworld for a portion of the year. And so during that time, while she spends in the underworld, that is our winter month. Depending on what the myth is, it's either half the year or a quarter, or like a third of the year. I go with like the third of the year version of the myth.
Is David Persephone?
Yeah, well, we've talked about this many times throughout this season too, or throughout the live streams. We've talked about Harrenhal and Alice and Damon, and
or Lares. Lares is Persephone, because Lares is like an agent working for Alice. Lares, and he's only in Harrenhal half the year. Oh my gosh! and he goes in with the flower and the fruit, and like.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like that.
Sorry.
But yeah, so there are a lot of connections to Damon's time there, especially with Harrenhal sort of being this like dark, like, you know, sort of I guess kind of an underworld type environment. And then Alice is like predicting his death and all of this kind of stuff. So there are some thematic connections there. Also the fact that they assigned the color purple to Harrenhal, which is not that is not connected to their sigil. There's the colors on their sigil. It's a green hand on a white field with a red stream, a blue stream, and a green stream like flowing out from it. And so their sigil itself is very connected to the green men from the Isle of Faces, but the show House of the Dragon, they specifically said that the color purple is Harrenhal's color. And we see that on Sir Simon. We see it with Alice. They wear a lot of purple in their clothing. And so the reason for that, you know, and also, sorry, we're getting into this. Okay. So not only that, there you go. Oh, beautiful. Persephone. And I'm wearing my Demeter grain goddess things, although I don't have my hair covered.
We did these for the Greek show. I did a Dionysus crown.
Yeah. Mandy is always
constantly wear when I get drunk.
She's a cosplay queen.
Purple Horror Babylon crown.
So, and actually, let me pull this up while we're on the topic.
Yeah, so that purple comment though, with the purple, blue, gold, and pearls, but like Rhaenyra's costume was the same. She had, considered the Whore of Babylon, and then remember in the beginning they're like, oh, the whore, traitor, queen, like they refer to her as a whore. So like it's kind of this whole idea, and I love that the older man of the strong, what's his name? What's his first name?
Sir Simon.
Yeah. So Simon also is like,
he's always he's dripped out in the like, man, that dude, he is wearing like the finest of drip. Like he is all dripped out in all purple. Like he's celebrating the mystery. So so another thing also is this week we got a new word in High Valyrian, or a new definition in High Valyrian. And it is hold on, let me pull this up so I can look at it closely. Okay. So Daima, the root word for violet, okay? And so Damon, his name is connected to violet. Now, violet, another word for violet, or, another color, like connection, is amethyst. So we also have like the amethyst empress, and like the bloodstone emperor, which are ancient mythology of like the Valyrians, and sort of the suspected origins of like, maybe not the Targaryens, but like the Valyrians. I'm not super well versed on this, but what I found to be incredibly interesting is that they chose to make this connection between Daemon and the color purple. Now, the color purple is also connected to your crown chakra and your third eye chakra. Daemon is going through this whole sort of ego death and awakening experience at Harrenhal, where they are also connected to the color purple. So it's all sort of connecting to one another, but not only that, like Daemon is clearly somehow linked to the amethyst, empress, or like that. Like there's like these stone kings, or like these gemstone emperors. Guys, what am I saying the right things right now? Like the gemstone emperors are like the ancient lineage of the Valyrians. And so Daemon has a clear connection to that mythology, or that, ancestry. So I just thought that was like really interesting and amazing. And it also, the Daima word, the root word, is also connected to authentically Valyrian. So we have a lot going on here with the color purple, with Daemon, with Harrenhal.
Diamond, which is demons, and the witch call. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting stuff. I shared that on my community tab this week too. If you guys, the purple has like a higher energy too, like in terms of music, tone, healing. It's supposed to be a higher frequency. It's the highest
frequency because it's connected to the crown chakra, so it is like your highest frequency. And when you are connected to like the light, to the higher power, like not your lower chakras, your root chakras, and like that's connecting you to the earth, but your crown chakra and your third eye chakra, that's connecting you to like prophecy, your prophetic abilities, your awakening, your connection to the light, and to sort of like prophetic power, right? Mm-hmm. And we see like that Daemon is going through that so much in this season.
I don't know. And like I liked how they're showing that a lot in all of the characters too, what they're wearing. I noticed as well. Like Rhaenyra started wearing the burgundy again versus the black, but she's got like the colors. She's got like the pearls and the jewels, and then her son though is wearing all the black.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. That was something that I definitely caught in this episode too was like she is so
and the cape, like y'all said, yeah.
In the Eleusinian mysteries or in that mystery religion, like the high priestess, she wears purple. She wears the purple. And so only the emperors were wearing purple. Like that was like a royal color, but the high priestess of Eleusis was also permitted to wear purple, and she was even permitted to wear purple in the presence of the emperor, which is something you would not see anyone else doing. So I thought it was really interesting that that was the color that Rhaenyra chose to wear. I mean, it's not necessarily purple, but it's definitely like a subdued red. It's not like a harsh red or even black, like you said. Like there's definitely a purple vibe to it, and so it goes even further to connect her to this, Rhaenyra's mystery religion that she's got going on here in this episode. Yes. So who made this comment? Carl, I see the comment on here, but yes, it was an expensive royal dye, but an actual psychoactive substance you took during your initiation. Yeah. So perhaps like, is that connected to like the Kaikion drink or maybe like I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, elaborate on that one, Carl. Oh, okay. The snail thing. And you know what? George used this. George used the purple snail dye in his mythology for Tyrosh, because they have these snails that produce the purple dye. So isn't that interesting? Ha ha ha. Okay. Yes, Housedane's color is purple. I'm wearing my Housedane earrings. They're not necessarily Housedane, but they have a purple bead and they're swords. So they're my Housedane earrings. Okay, so let's get into this Rhaenyra stuff, guys. So Rhaenyra, okay. I have a lot of thoughts about all the stuff that's going here. And I also am going to make a video for you guys. So I'm going to try and not divulge all of the thoughts that I have or all the things I'm going to put in the video as well. But I do have a lot of thoughts. So let's start with what Rhaenyra tells the people as they're gathered together in her chambers. So she tells them, each of you has left a life behind to answer this call, a life to which you may never return. If you survive, you will be transformed. No man or woman can face a dragon and be otherwise. Some of you may welcome the prospect of change, even death, given the alternatives. Privation, starvation, war. This is our purpose, to end these hardships. For you, your kin, for all the realm. With these 2 dragons added to our numbers, the enemy will have no choice but to give way, and peace will be restored. Suffering will be ended, and without bloodshed, God's willing. And may the gods bless you. Hang on, I have to go discipline a child. So Mandy, take it up.
I want to talk, like going into this when they're calling, let's point out that she does say the things, may the gods bless you, and kind of that parallels with the same way Alicent did with Christian and her brother in the Battle of Rook's Rest. Now, this whole blessing thing, I think it all started with the calling. Like the blessing was, to me, Addam, with this hope and idea of a dream. But I feel like, sometimes Miss Saria is kind of like her wisdom, her Holy Spirit help or whatever, like keeps running her back. But in this episode, when they did the call for the sowing of the red seed, of the sowing of, we see a lot of biblical verses of sowing, how you sow your seed, what harvest will you reap? What are you going to get in return? Like, if you pay attention and sow your seed properly, but it becomes red because she didn't sow it properly. She did it with death. So there's a lot of rituals here, and we'll get into that like more, but I want to talk about when Miss Arya hands off this note. It's actually in a broken reed, and it's to who I believe is a true shepherd, Alan Valerian. Because I had it on the second time when I went back, I was like, why is this like that? But yeah, so she hands it off, and he's like, he is a like Messiah character. He doesn't want it. He's happy with his own Lord, his own Father. He doesn't want another Lord. He doesn't want to change. But it says like a reed is put into Jesus' hand to mock him for claiming to be king, and then the reed is meant to represent a royal scepter. But it also says, what did you go out to, of your home and wilderness to see? Or what did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed that was shaken by wind, how the platform shakes, and he's by the breath. The reed is also a symbol of frailty in the human existence. A bruised reed he will not break, but a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. And then we see Ulf has a smoldering wick in his hand. The addam, a bruised reed, he didn't break. And it's a prophecy about Jesus and Christ, and like a bruised reed and smoldering wick, they represent weak spiritually, physically, or morally people, that can be damaged, but yet or are damaged or are less than, but they can be still repaired, because the smoldering wick can be reignited. So, and then I don't think the reed can, but the reed is there. It just means you're weak in faith and love. So it's just interesting to think that, because this whole idea, like I wanted just to tie it. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys see it?
Yeah. You're talking about Alan. Sorry.
Yeah, like I'm saying they're scepters. Like they're all getting these royal scepters here. They're all getting the ideas. But Alan got sent a scepter, the reed. When Saria made the call, it was a reed. It was a small broken reed from the wilderness. It was like, which represents like the weak people, the frailty. But part of the reason Ulf got this is he had a smoldering wick in his hand. He wasn't frail. He was like the bruised reed, like the things that they represent. They have symbolism behind them.
Yeah. I like it. I like Alan. He's like a servant of the people. He's very humble, and he's not self-interested. Oh, go ahead.
Why was he there? Like I had to like double check that. I was like, wait, is that Alan? Because I was like, looks like Alan, but I thought at first it was Rhaenyra's like helpers or mysterious people, but like Alan is in lines with Mysteria?
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, or was that just on Corlys's behalf, because he trusted Alan implicitly, and so he's the one that he sent him specifically to do the job?
No, because it was Mysteria doing, well, maybe, but like I also looked at that as maybe he's in lines. He's one of Mysteria's part of the people, and like part of her thing here is she's she's taking care of the widows, the homeless, the orphans. She's taking care of the orphans here. They're calling all these ideas about how they will be blessed. The widows, orphans, fatherless, that they're going to end up making the first, or the first will be last, and the last will be first, and they're the least of them going to be first. So, and then the first offering was obviously he died.
I like this comment here. So Emma says, Rhaenyra's robe or gown in episode 7 resembles the look of the emperors of China, the Chinese dynasties, especially the Tang dynasty, the heights of divine rights and rulers considered gods and also leaders of the religion. It is not a coincidence. Yeah. And, the Chinese, they have like a very strong connection to dragon mythology. So that was probably a very intentional decision by the costuming department. There are so many layers to this, this
so
whole,
many.
Yeah.
So the reed, though, that means it's an emblem of a believer that's weak in grace, and how she's, and Mysteria's weak in grace. They're not your grace. They're weak in their bloodline as royalty. So that's kind of like, it's just interesting that, and she gives it to Addam, who's weak in grace.
Interesting.
And it's also measured. It's used to measure water. it's a cup, or reeds can also be a cup that you fill when you're surviving in the wilderness. And there were some there by Allison, but reeds also can be cups and measuring devices as well. So scales, the scales.
Well, also, that you mentioned that, because with Oscar Tully, he's just a little guy, and so my mind instantly was reminded of Howland Reed, because Howland Reed is just a little guy. He's just a little riverman, and he's always talked about being like a short person, but he's obviously like very powerful and a powerful individual that we'd love to see more of.
and House, I mean, that I rep House Reed hard, but like they have their oath is like hearth and heart and harvest we give to you. So they're giving everything that we've been talking about. They're giving up their homes, they're giving up their families. You left your homes, you're giving your full heart, and we'll give you, she, like Rhaenyra gave the first fruits or whatever, the harvest, bread. She talks about the lack of harvest. It's really just focus. And I mean, House Reed is awesome, but it is like scales again with the fish.
I think I even put in the description, I think I put the oath, by earth and water, by
bronze
and iron,
bronze fury,
fire. I think it's in the description of this very live.
Oh my gosh! So listen. Okay. So look, we swear it by earth and water. So when we see, when we see the hammer there, bronze, and like when Hugh is there, he gets down to the earth in water, and he gets the bronze, and then the iron wick, and he's over there.
He's a blacksmith, so he works with iron.
And then also, earth and water, bronze and iron, but also like Rhaenyra, like the whole first scene is ice and fire. Totally. I mean, well, it's ice and water, but it just reminded me like so much. It was so beautifully done.
Interesting.
It is. Wait. House Reed during the coming of the Andals. And then the priest getting mad because the Andals were coming. Oh, another thing. They gave the oath then, like in the first Andals. So here we go. This is what I was talking about earlier. History, the same old story, is representing itself. Just in different words.
Yeah. It's just a reincarnating story, especially for us. We see it.
I love it. Okay, back to the dragon pit.
Back to the dragon pit. So, also, while we're on the subject of like talking about Rhaenyra's outfit, I did want to point out her hair also was really interesting, because she has like this, her hair is always very like expressive. It's like really telling us like what's going on with her. And she has like an intricate braid design, but only on one side of her head. And so that to me is like really describing her mental state. She's feeling very alone without Daemon. Like when she and Daemon are together, it's all very balanced, like duality and that kind of thing in her physical presence. But she is just singular, has the design on one side of her head. And I thought that was really significant, worth pointing out.
Also significant to match her brother, her father, the lineage, because it's all on one side. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So the destruction and how one and amen. And then also the destruction of her house. All of it is one-sided. Wow, absolutely. That's actually really deep. What a great comment. That's from hair. Look at chat. What do you think?
Literally written essays about Rhaenyra's hair. Like the I think episode what was it? Episode like 3 or 4 or something. Yeah, I totally wrote an essay about her hair. I was like, her hair is like telling us so much, guys. Maybe I'll just read it to you on here because
I mean, it's so much deeper, because it does go back to the idea of like, are you doing this for yourself, or is it you're one-sided on the realm for selfish reasons, or are you doing it for the better good of us all? Are you coming to even Rhaenyra's like, she's acting like it, but like she's still doing it for selfish gain. You know, and that's just how the world is, unfortunately. That's like how you're brought up. That's what you forget. I mean, I'm guilty of it all too. But it's just and she's actually being used by Mysterio in a sense for selfish gain too. I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, I think she's the friend sent in disguise, you know. She's the angel sent to like fool you.
Yeah, I had a mild inclination that she could have an ulterior motive in this episode, and that was when she was trying to convince Rhaenyra, you know, your own like highborn brothers have turned against you and they don't treat you with honor. So why not, you know, kind of give the lowborn the opportunity? And I was like, well, she could, there's a chance she could have, you know, nefarious intentions with that. Or just as like a great equalizer, for example, like, you know, because she is a proponent of the small folk. Her priority is for the small folk. That was where things went awry with her and Otto Hightower. You know, that's where her mind and her heart truly lie. She thinks that she can kind of make that, you know, she can use Rhaenyra empowering her as a way to benefit the small folk. And so she's repeatedly trying to help Rhaenyra recognize that, like, oh, the small folk can do this for you. The small folk can do that for you. They can spread rumors. They can do this. And so, but now she's pushing, well, they can also fly dragons. And it's like, at what point are you going to, you know, reel it back in and say, maybe that's not the best idea?
Well, she comes in as like this great helper, you know, like a spirit, raises Rhaenyra's spirit. And this is the thing, is like, that's why people aren't good or bad. Like they're in between. But the problem is her storyline is also the same as it parallels her, even though Rhaenyra's is opposite of Daemon's, hers parallels Daemon's. Like hers is like, I kind of feel like she wants to get revenge on House Hightower. That's her purpose. She wants to be seen. She wants to be recognized. You know, she's like, well, for the greater good of the realm, that's her identity. But there's a point when she starts forgetting that its purpose, and its purpose becomes her identity. And, you know, like your identity is bigger, like it always changes. You can't hold on to just, this is who I am. Like Rhaenyra, this is what my father did. This is House Targaryen. This is what it is. No, you have to be willing to bend when God calls it. You have to be willing to change things when things get shook up. Their house is lost. And I think that we're seeing her fall into that. Like Daemon put her into that place because she was trying to do that. So, but now she's hold on pride and also revenge. You know, she's not bad. She does have purpose and heart to change and to defend the small folk. But is it for the better good of them? Or is it for, you know what I mean? Like, I think she's willing also to sacrifice. Like she hasn't made many mistakes. You know, she's not no one's bad, but she's kind of flirting that line, and she's becoming, you know, in this scene, for example, she's in the back and ready to run. She's ready to offer up other people's life, but truly her own.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's playing the Game of Thrones. And so ultimately those people, you know, and maybe she'll feel a little bit differently after the events of this episode. Like perhaps she'll feel differently in the next episode, or, you know, feel some remorse about what had happened to them. But right now, like, she's playing the Game of Thrones. And so ultimately the backlash, you know, falls on Rhaenyra, and Mysaria is still somewhat in a position where she could slip away and no one would notice. Like if things went awry, if, you know, stuff hit the fan, she could easily slip away and no one would be the wiser. So it's kind of interesting what her true motivations are, or like how far she's trying to take it, or if she really is truly like, just like Addam, you know, is she truly loyal. And that's one of the things she even asks Rhaenyra. She says, you think you can trust this man? And Rhaenyra's like, what choice do I have? And that was kind of a telling moment right there, because like Mysaria, her instinct is don't trust someone initially. You don't just immediately like put your trust in someone. But what does that say about her? You know, what does that say about what her intentions that she might have hidden from Rhaenyra?
Well, I think you are supposed to like just love and trust, but and like you learn from that. And that's the thing, is it's not that she is good or bad or she has bad intentions. I think her good intentions, like you ever hear the saying, good intentions are the like pave the road to hell.
Pave the road to hell, yeah.
However it goes, you know.
Yeah.
But that's I've experienced that, you know. There are a lot of times I've done it, but other people thought that my intentions were wrong. And I'm like, well, my intentions were not intentions. I was just here to love and have a good time. But I think that that's also a problem here, is that everybody throughout the games they play, you know, what, and Rhaenyra saying to Addam, what are your intentions? Like, what do you, like, I need to know. But like, it's just sometimes okay not to know. Like, it's sometimes okay to just flow, to go and change as you go, because like there's a difference between purposeful living and intentional living. And you know, goals and things aren't bad, but are you living them for your prideful gain, or for yourself, or are you living them to help the people in your circle and your love and your family? Like her, you know, she's raising her family, but essentially sending them to their deaths. And it's for a purposeful reason, but it's also for a prideful reason. It's not for the better of the realm. It's so I mean, I think that it kind of like, again, she's here, she's being fed in the ears, she's starting to not listen to everyone else, but she also is, you know, kind of carrying that load of Mysaria too, versus her husband's mode, because they're connected, and then her father. And it's just hard for her to find her own voice, like most people. Like, we have voices of everyone else in our head, but now that she's stepping into her purpose, Rhaenyra's not able to love like she did before. She's like hardening, like she's callousing with see. Like, she's just like, forget them, whatever. But it's kind of sad, you know. It's really deep. It is really deep. Like, all of these, they're not good or bad. They're not, you know, and their intentions, despite, end up sometimes bad, and sometimes bad intentions end up good. Like,
yeah. Well, it's just like, you know, as Candace Owens would say, you make plans and God laughs. But very true. Like, you know, the more you try to plan for every outcome, the more things are going to come and throw a wrench in your plans. So you see me rolling on my dragon.
I was trying to like come up with all these like parodies for this scene, but like I thought about that one too. Yeah, if you want to ride with me, you can get low. Into the firma though. You know.
Awesome.
Addam, let your hand down, or Addam, you bail down. Don't be scared now. If you want to ride with me, come up to the crib, or come up to my wait. Or you are, if you want to ride with me, ride to me. You are born from my crib, or something like that. Like something like from the cribs to the creeps. From the cribs to the cribs. I don't know. So we'll work with it.
Mandy's the parody queen.
Actually, from this scene, I came up with this whole like Universal Studios ride, but I don't think we have time for me to discuss it. But it was like, if they remodeled E.T., they had like bucks and things like that. This whole episode, this thing could be a whole like ride. Like, come with me. Are you a dragon? Let's find out. Let's go. And then you go through the things, and then when you get to Hugh, you go like all the dragon glass is like shining. I don't know if anyone's been on the ET ride, but you go to like, first you go over the city, so you can go over the city of you know, of, what can I think of it? Of the Red Cube. You can go over all of the town, and then you can go into the cave where you had dragon glass, like old people. You have Hugh talking when you're entering, like, I don't know if I can do this, my leg. And then you see like Damon over there cutting up some like eggs. I don't know. It's just I have a whole story, but anyway, I'm not gonna go into it. It's really funny. Maybe I'll make a video. But I also came up, with a bunch of other things. I'm like, we should do like a "We Are Family."
That's awesome. Yeah, it's pretty good. There's a lot of this week is the week of parodies. Like there was a lot of songs that we could
so much.
Really, yeah.
Well, like the like with Eamon rolling on the thing, like roller coaster of love. Wait, what? Because he's like, it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, so okay, so Rhaenyra, she takes all these dragon seeds out onto actually, okay, before we get into this, we do need to talk about Jace. All right, base Jace is at it again. Hashtag based Jace. All right, because he's at it again. He's very upset that his mother is willing to allow the dragon seeds, to be illegitimate, misbegotten Targaryen offspring. Okay. And he basically, you can understand like why he's upset. I can understand why he's upset. And it does kind of make you wonder if that feeds into Rhaenyra's ultimate intentions in the dragon pit, okay? Because Jace is concerned that his legitimacy, he's been, like Rhaenyra said, they've been called bastards for 20 years. And so he's struggling with that. He's never really had a serious conversation with his mother about Harwin Strong and what his purpose is. And the dragons kind of legitimize any question of any claim that Jace or Luke or Joffrey, that people would have about them. Oh, are they true Targaryens? Are they truly worthy to be heirs? Well, they do have dragons. They're able to fly their dragons. They hatch their dragons from eggs. So that really proves their legitimacy. But when you bring in a bunch of illegitimate Targaryens and then offer them the opportunity to ride a dragon, it really removes that sort of like the legitimacy, but also like what makes the strong boys special. That's what makes them special, that they were able to fly regardless of their brown hair and this kind of thing. And so Jace is really struggling with his mother's decision because it was, let's be real, it was his idea. The dragon seed thing was his idea to try and see if they could find another rider. However, he was fine with it like when they were legitimate heirs, so Darkland.
That intention thing, good intentions, they come back.
Yeah. But, when they're illegitimate, then it really is a little bit close to home and it kind of rubs against his own, issues and questions of his legitimacy. And so, it's interesting. And Rhaenyra, she's like, I miss like all of this, but like, I cannot waste an opportunity. I cannot gainsay what the gods lay before me. I can't waste an opportunity to see this through or to build up my side, and clearly the situation with Addam was so unexpected that she has to pursue it. And so Jason's like, well, just don't pursue it.
Actually, now that we're talking about this, it just came to my head just how Oscar Tully was giving the chance for him to repent. That's what Jace was doing. That was Jace's character here. He gave the chance for Rhaenyra to tell him the truth, to repent, to say how she felt. But instead of that, she held on to the works that she did, the work she's doing, the prideful arrogance of the self versus what she's actually pushing and telling all her children or all the people that we're doing this for. We're doing this to make it better. And she was like really cold to Jace and like, yeah, I don't like it too. But like, she didn't hold him or say it's okay. Cause I think this is like, Jace should have been the leader here. Like this is his calling. She's like, in a sense, robbing him. Like this should have been Jace's calling. This should have been like, listen, I can do it too. But like, the problem is instead of making him feel like he was it doesn't matter, like how she says in the season 1, like, oh, it none of that matters. You are a Targaryen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of playing in that. But like Jace kind of gave Rhaenyra the chance to repent, and maybe that's also another reason why it goes bad, because this doesn't it doesn't prove her right. It actually is, to me, it's a blood sacrifice to the old gods. The same, like it's still keeping the old gods. It's not, although it makes it seem like it's like a false deception. And like how Jace is the false deception. Jace is her false deception that she couldn't repent and claim.
Good point. Well, so as an extension of that, so this is where I think that what happened at the Dragon Pit, the large scale ritualistic sacrifice, that really, is what it came down to. And this is what I'm writing an essay about, but not to get in too much onto that, but in a sense, she might also have been doing that for Jace for that reason, like for his actual complaints and his concerns. What if one of these silver-haired Targaryens decides that they want to be the king, they want to be heir, or they want to try and usurp the throne, and they have silver hair versus Jace, who has dark hair? So even so, there's still like this layer of like the hair color difference as like a an aspect of their legitimacy. So perhaps like you have, let's say, I think it was maybe, I'm not sure how many people came in, but I'm guessing somewhere between like 20 and 40 people came in, these Dragonseeds, and only 2 dragons to, potentially claim. So that's still an influx of a whole bunch of extra Targaryens that could potentially be a danger or a risk, or, like Jace was saying, what if one of them decides, what if a silver-haired Targaryen decides that they want to take the throne? And so by Rhaenyra sacrificing all these extras, which still kind of like through the process of elimination, she still found riders for Vermithor and Silverwing, but she also rid herself of a whole bunch of extras, a whole bunch of extra threats, a whole bunch of extra seeds, Targaryen seeds, that could potentially cause issues for her son, or any other number of things in the future. Granted, they've been pretty low key this whole time, not giving anyone any trouble, but you never know. They could start to rise up, dragon or no. Like we see in the future for the Targaryens, even without dragons, they're still, they're set apart, closer to gods than men kind of thing, even when there are no dragon gods per se, to reference.
So the thing, in addition to that though, that I love that you pointed that out, because they do, I am the dragon. We are dragon. Like we are and then the whole idea of how her father told her, we are but men. What makes us look like is the dragons. We're not gods. And so she knows that, she's been warned that. And right before also, I kind of, now I'm rethinking my idea on the priest, but he tells her, dragons are not, this is the last of the old magic. These are the last of the Valyrians, whether they're part Andal or not. How you're bringing that, but you wait. So I want to look back at the exact words now, because did you put an Andal before the throne? But the thing is like those were lives of the old magic. That's blood of the old magic. They are all each the old magic that she got rid of. But the priest warned her, like, don't play games with these. Like, you're gonna lose the games, and then they end up losing. This could be the actual cause of the downfall of House Valyrian or House Targaryen. Your house is the last of them. So, and it talks about when your house is gone, the few that are left for them, I'm going to bring them to another land. But this is a whole other thing, this is, this just popped in my head. And yet the gods. Okay, so can you go to the priest? What are the priests warning her?
He said, okay, I've got a few screenshots. So he said, he was no dragon lord. And Rhaenyra says, and yet the gods have set them before us. And he says, you have set them before yourself. The dragons are sacred. They are the last magic of old Valyria in this sad world.
Yeah,
they are not things for the games of men.
So, wow, this is like the small folk. They are leaders of the realm. The dragons, whether you see it as the people or not, he's not just talking about the dragons. He's talking about her bloodline, talking about people, the small folk. They're not just pawns to use. They're not swords. They're not sacrifices. People are people. You're the same as them. Like, you are part of the old magic. The blood is the old magic. And it says you, personally you. So it goes into, again, to that prideful thing where she's playing selfishly and not for purpose, not for her, if she wanted them, like, I don't know, lay down her own life. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a different story how they say it. So these words are really, how they're presented are really important to remember, because it does key in. And like, we tend to think like, okay, dragons, but remember that there's the universal themes going under here, and their house says, I am the dragon.
Fire and blood. And, and the dragon tamers, like, they're dedicated, their whole lives, their jobs, everything are dedicated to this old magic and keeping, protecting it. And like he said, the magic is sacred. The dragons are sacred. The last magic of old Valyria. So doing sort of things like this out of left field, trying new things, or even introducing, new people, giving people the opportunity, is a very risky thing for everyone. And above all, the dragon tamers, I think, are like, keepers of that knowledge. They are priests of the dragons, in a sense. Like, they're priests and priestesses, in a sense, of that magic that the dragons are made of.
I mean, and also it's like it also goes into the fact that Alan came to her and says, who am I to defy God? He came to me. And here she is enforcing it, forcing it to happen on her time when she wants whatever. I mean, I think the sacrifices gave it. I think her asking, her having hope, her actually like believing in a better future, but she's condemned and she's judged the same way. And she ends up, feeling, I think she ends up feeling that and seeing that. It humbles her in a sense when she gets to that point when she's on the bridge, but she also, like, she loses all this family. And then that does fall. Like, you do pay consequences in the end for these things. And, there are wages and scales, and she's fishing men to send off to kill, and so is Daemon, not to fish men for a cause. And I think that this is also the next level of the cause. So this is going to humble her in her approach to the cause forward.
I don't know if I feel like she humbled herself. If anything, I kind of feel the opposite. Like, she sort of was empowered, because even when the dragon tamers left, she says to the others, she's like, everything that I thought I knew about claiming dragons was ash in the wind, because of Addam showing up, and he claimed, or the dragon claimed him in a way that was a completely, unknown thing for anyone at this point. Nobody's understands that concept, and or nobody's ever experienced anything the way that Addam did. No one's been claimed by a dragon versus the other way around. The person claims the dragon, not the dragon claims a person. And so I think that because she's witnessed like something, and also because Rhaenyra, and the Targaryens are the ones who actually have the blood connection to the dragons, that when the tamers are like, oh, well, we're leaving, we're quitting because you're playing the Game of Thrones with dragons. And Rhaenyra, she just feels empowered to do so. But also, like, the dragon tamers literally came to her while she has all of these dragon seeds gathered in the room. Like, what are you expecting? You should have maybe said something a little sooner. But but I do think that she feels very differently right now than she did even a day prior, or, a couple days prior, basically moments prior to when Addam and Sea Smoke showed up. Now she feels like everything she thinks she knows is just to the wind. And also, not only that, she's been studying on her own. Like all this time that Rhaenyra has been forced to remain idle on Dragonstone throughout season 2 because she can't go out and fight for her claim because she's the sovereign. So she has to remain safe. She has to protect herself. Otherwise, the whole entire thing is out the window. If she dies, then like, do you really think like Jace stands a chance, you know, with his claim only? Like, probably not. The lords, the high lords are probably not going to go for that. And so with like this whole thing, like I think Rhaenyra feels actually empowered, not humbled, and she feels like she has a higher authority, like she knows more because she is connected to the dragons. And so despite the fact that the dragon tamers are leaving, fine, I can still do this on my own. Don't worry about it. You know, I've done it already on my own. I've come this far without even Daemon here. So Rhaenyra is like, she's standing on her own feet. And she is stepping into like priestess mode, like high queen mode, empress mode, like empress in the tarot. You know, she's ready to perform the mysteries. And it's literally a mystery to her. She doesn't know how this is going to turn out, but she's willing to take the chance. And because she's been studying those texts, those ancient texts, she's been reading about Visenya, all the histories about Visenya. She's been trying to learn, you know, for an angle against Vhagar. And so she's been reading all this history on Visenya, who is kind of her personal, you know, heroine anyways. And so she has most certainly learned some really interesting things because Visenya was said to be a sorceress, to dabble in the dark arts and this kind of thing. And she strongly upheld Targaryen traditions. And so put those things together, that means she's probably had ancient knowledge of Valyrian blood magic that she was rumored to practice in or what have you. And even the birth of Maegor is sort of a questionable, like shadowy kind of thing that they suspect may have had magical intervention. And so
the dragons can be like the dragons though can be like vassals too, because there's a lot of focus on vassals, but like I think essentially it's fire magic.
Yeah. Well, and I think she's learning, like, I think she's learned some things. Like, I think she's learned some knowledge. Like, we've seen her several times throughout the season. She's reading these books she's reading, and they're in old, you know, High Valyrian and this kind of thing. So I can't decipher if there's anybody here who could point me in the right direction of somebody who can you know, decipher High Valyrian in text form, then I would love to know what it said in those books that she was reading. But unfortunately, I don't have that information. But I do believe, I'm choosing to believe that she was reading about sorcery, some sort of blood, you know, blood of the dragon connections of old Valyrian magic and that kind of thing, which, you know, obviously there's still going to be some evidence of, some remnants of, because we still have the Order of Dragon Tamers. These are, you know, people that have knowledge, and in Essos, you know, there are remnants of Targaryens or remnants of Valyrians, but they don't have dragons themselves. Especially in Volantis, they have what's called like the Black Gates or Black Walls or something like that. And behind the Black Walls, that's where like actually there are a bunch of Valyrian like ancestors that live there.
And like the shadow babies too, like they have extreme power. Like there's so many forces of these powers. But I think it all goes back to ice and fire, like and like, yeah, fire.
Yeah. But I think that's like part of like, you know, Visenya, Rhaenyra's contingency plan, right? She's like, okay, we'll see how this goes, but if worse comes to worse and things go in the way of Sir Stefan, where you know, Vermithor rejects them, or, you know, he just ends up burning them, like her contingency plan is that that's like a large scale sacrifice. So she may perhaps gain favor from the gods by doing that. So whether or not they're able to find riders for the dragons, she's still making a large scale sacrifice to the dragons who are their gods And Rhaenyra has been saying over and over again throughout these episodes, may, you know, the gods will show us favor, you know, hold on, I have notes on it. Hold on. She said a whole bunch of stuff. I cannot gainsay what the gods have laid before me. To claim a dragon, you must be prepared to die. Then perhaps the gods will favor us. You know, there's all these wordings, the gods, this is how to make the gods favor us. This is how to gain favor. And so there's something here. Like, I think the sacrifice part was very intentional. Yeah. I'm going to make a video about this. I'm pretty much telling you guys everything that's in the video, but that's all right. I'm still going to make the video.
So in Isaiah, Isaiah 64 is pretty much this whole scene. And it's a prayer for mercy and pardon. But like, it talks about the hand bringing them together, the people, and the Lord denies them, for we are like you, talking about Lord, because her son is actually Lord of Dragonstone right now. But his heart is like still stone. Like, he's dragons, you know, there's like a whole,
core.
But it's like, you know, it says, wait, like, sorry, you welcome those who cheerfully, anyway, it talks about like, we are all infected with impure and impure with sin. When we proudly display our righteous deeds, we find they are but filthy rags. And then she ends up being filthy at the end. Same with Daemon. Like autumn leaves, we wither and fall. And our sins, which she considers, and they consider all of the bastards to be like sinful, or, you know, or her being prideful. I mean, there's so many sins in this thing, but and our sins, like the wind, they sweep us away. Yet no one calls on your name or pleads with you for mercy. Therefore you have turned away from us and turned us over to that sins. And then it talks, you know, later on about like the city being destroyed and then going to the wilderness. And it's kind of all parallel here, but I won't go into it. But it talks about that turning away thing. And I think the reason she didn't, part of the reason, like Jace turned away. You know, like it says like, Lord, you stand up from your holy, glorious home. Where is the passion that you might use to be, where is the passion and the might you used to show on our behalf? Where are your mercy and compassion now? Like referring to Jace being the Lord, because it was his idea. Mm-hmm. It says, surely you're still our father. And even if, you know, our Abraham, Jacob, or our past fathers would disown us, Lord, you would still be our father. You would be our redeemer from ages past. Lord, why have you allowed us to turn from your path? So like, this is the thing, is she brings them to do her path. Mm-hmm. But I think part of the redeeming factor is that God is setting, or like the realm and dragons, they're setting forth new paths for other people who are worthy or who come to serve her. Because the servant, like how she served the realm, becomes it. But then she gets into this prideful thing. But there is a point here of redeeming hope where she doesn't turn her back. Or maybe that's because she's not the Lord, you know, she ends up, like, it's just an idea. I wanted to relate how this scene really does play into this. It's Isaiah 64. The whole book of Isaiah is pretty much this whole season with the prophecies and everything, because it talks, I think, like Isaiah's her father, he plays a lot of those roles.
Interesting. So, and also, okay, so let's get into this scene. So let's talk about the Eleusinian mysteries. Okay, we're going to talk about this really quick. So, you know, we started with it. So this is a mystery religion surrounding the Hades and Persephone and Demeter myth. Now, as the mysteries, basically, there was a religious festival that was held yearly in Athens, and the attendees were basically, like, the purpose of the Eleusinian mysteries is to essentially make your peace with death. Okay, so you are essentially making your peace with the reincarnation process. So you go there and whether you're making your peace with it for your own personal self or with like a loved one that you've lost, there are many reasons to go to the mysteries. And there's also 2 separate sets of it. So there's like one for everyone. There's also a female only mystery set that is at a session that is at a different time of the year. And there's a reason for that. And we'll get into that. So at the Eleusinian Mysteries, every person who attends, and when you attend and when you complete the mysteries, you're gaining favor in the afterlife. So you're gaining favor from the gods. And so if you go through this process, then you actually are automatically elevated in the afterlife to like a better portion of the underworld, because the underworld is sectioned out. There's really beautiful parts of it, and there's other parts that are really terrible, and you lose your memory and all of this kind of stuff. So anyhow, so everyone who attends the mysteries brings a pig, a sacrificial pig. Okay. And you start in Athens, and you walk to Eleusis, which is several miles. And so there's this sort of ritualistic walk with everyone and sort of this wild behavior. You also do, before it begins, you take a bath in the ocean at Eleusis, and you sort of cleanse yourself of your sin. So we kind of saw a symbolic connection to Alicent in this scene. But then, so you're cleansing yourself, and then you have your sacrificial pig. You make this trek. You're also fasting for several days. And then they give you a ritual drink, which is called kaikion. And it is a hallucinogenic beverage, perhaps alcoholic, perhaps kind of psychedelic, with like maybe mushrooms or sort of like a LSD kind of, or even ergot, some suspect. Or it might just be, kind of a variation over the years. But anyhow, so the people, they drink this drink, they go enter a temple at Eleusis, this massive temple, and there's a ton of pillars inside, just so many pillars inside that it's sort of disorienting. And then there's a big stage in the front where they perform this mystery like ceremony, which has to do with the descent of Persephone, her descent into the underworld, and sort of the life, death, and rebirth process. Now, we don't have exact records on what the mysteries, what exactly happened, but we have general ideas of what happened. There are small fragments of records, but unfortunately, a lot of it was destroyed when Christianity, sort of took over in Greece, and they destroyed a lot of the temples and that kind of thing. They sacrifice these pigs, and then they cast them into the pits, and the pigs are meant to represent yourself, your own self. So you're sort of going through this metaphysical, like, ego death, ritualistically, where you're making your peace with the afterlife, and you're learning about Demeter and Persephone and sort of the secrets of life and death and rebirth and your soul and all of this kind of stuff. Plus, these people, they've been fasting, and they're drinking like psychedelic beverages, and there's, these big, like, they didn't have television or, concerts and this kind of thing back then. So they're having like this big performance put on. So it's very like jarring and mind altering, and you're going through this ego death. And so it's really interesting and fascinating. And so Rhaenyra was essentially performing a version of this, because if we think about the purpose of the Eleusinian Mysteries being the reincarnation process, the life, death, rebirth process, it's a threefold mystery, related to these 3 gods. And then we consider the Targaryens 3 heads of the dragon, but also, she's bringing in her sacrificial pigs, right? She's got her piggies. They're coming in, these Targaryen Dragonseeds or what have you. And then what happens? They are cast into the pit. Many of them are cast into the pit. And those who are strong enough are the ones who survive and claim the dragon, and they are rebirthed in fire or from a cosmic egg if you're Ulf. They're rebirthed into a new life. They are transformed, as Rhaenyra said in her sort of opening ceremonies, right? But Rhaenyra herself, she is representing Demeter in the mysteries. And so I won't get too far into the mythology, but the high priestess, she does represent Demeter, the mother goddess. Okay. And Demeter is also a grain goddess. And part of like the symbolic connection and even like the performative connection in the Eleusinian mysteries is the burning of corn, because in order to bake bread, okay, so corn goddess, grain goddess, grains equal bread. Bread is, a very common food for the common folk, right? But in order to bake bread, you have to burn the seeds. So this is part of it. Like Demeter, she is a grain goddess, a harvest goddess, a mother nature goddess, but she also has a fire aspect, okay? And she's called Demeter Erinyes, okay? She has an actual title. And she's her angry, vengeful aspect because she is seeking revenge, or she's trying to find her daughter. Her daughter has literally died being abducted and taken into the underworld. Persephone experienced a death of herself. And so Demeter's goal is to reincarnate her daughter and bring her back. And this is all very like indicative of their connection to the plants, because plants, what do plants do? They grow from a seed, they become a plant, they produce a fruit. The fruit has seeds. The fruit falls away to the ground, the underworld, and those seeds become new. They create new life. So plants in and of themselves are a reincarnating thing, right? A reincarnating like a whatever thing. And so so Rhaenyra also clearly is connected to this idea. She's the mother goddess. She's a vengeful mother goddess because her child was taken from her. Her children have been taken from her. They have been killed. They're dead for her cause, and she wants them back, or she at least wants some vengeance from that. She is a mother goddess. And she also is raising these seeds. She's bringing the seeds towards her. But what do the seeds have to do in order to become fruitful or to become edible or to become a bread? They have to be burnt. So we can see it's all interconnected here with the Eleusinian mysteries and what Demeter represents. Rhaenyra is Demeter in this moment. And it's just chef's kiss. So, all right.
So it also, like, I mean, I have to point out the biblical thing, but it kind of reminded me of like Moses. There's like this whole idea of the Moses scroll, and Moses leading the Israelites to a promised land, to a promised idea. And this is the whole idea of like this promised land too that they're figuring out, where like the narrow sea, or they're splitting the sea. You know what I mean? Like the whole idea that Alan plays the shepherd.
Yeah.
So and they give them the boats, and there's a lot of toys and plays on vassals, and even with Oscar Tully saying about the vassals and the fishers of men, and that whole idea, and obviously the seed connection, sowing the seed. Mm-hmm. But this isn't like a seed that was sowed. It was like it and the Eleusinian mysteries and like pigs and man pigs to death or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like they used also the scapegoat, which is like an old ritual as well. That's in like the Torah and the Bible that they use, where they took a goat and they would put all of its once a year, or once, they would put all of their sins on it and then send it out to the wilderness. And that's kind of like what happens with Alicent in this episode as well. Mm-hmm. And here we are. Like, I wonder if Jace is going to go out to the wilderness in a sense, because she didn't, because she's not repenting. She's not seeing, she's not like holding, she's holding on to the promise and to the better, but not like actually feeling it in her heart.
Well, I had this thought also of, because on that note, like I had talked about this, I think, before you got in here, Mandy, but so there was they're doing all these behind the scenes videos, and last week they did one on the weaponry in House of the Dragon. And one of the things that they had pointed out was that Rhaenyra keeps Harwin Strong's sword in her apartment. So we see that scene where she's really channeling her inner Visenya, and she holds up the sword. This was in like episode 6. And amongst her pile of swords laying there is Harwin's sword. And I just thought that was really significant, especially considering like Harwin was brought back up in this episode. Like clearly it's weighing upon Jace's heart, the truth of his parentage. But not only that, like, I do wonder if he might end up taking up Harwin's sword. Because what's the purpose? Like, what was the purpose of having his sword? I mean, yeah, it's a nice touch, but I think that they'll add more to it. And especially because they pointed it out in that behind the scenes thing, I think they will bring more to it. But I think that there's a sort of like a luck charm. And I don't necessarily know if it'll be a good luck charm if he takes up the sword. And I think that will connect him to, spoilers. I mean, if you guys haven't read Fire and Blood, okay, spoiler warning. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Jace dies. And he is killed in a battle of the gullet. Like, he's killed in battle, and he dies like a Velaryon. He dies sea and salt. And so there's that reincarnation symbolism there with that. But wouldn't it be interesting as like an additional layer to that is if he's carrying his father's sword, who also, he was also killed. So as like a, I don't know, symbolic like omen or something of that nature. Like if he takes the sword, it probably would be a bad omen for him, but also like this sort of beautiful symbolic death that has an opportunity for reincarnation. You know what I'm saying?
So I like this thing here and the one who has a knife cuts the bread and establishes the order. But like bread, give us this day our daily bread, unleavened bread. But like there's also the verse, man cannot live on bread alone, which means you need the spirit. And when you go to the full armor of God or the righteous or whatever, the sword is the sword of the spirit. It's the 6th piece of armor and represents the word of God. And there's a lot of Bible verses about the sword being referenced to your mouth, what you say. The things that you say can, come against you. And in the Hebrews, which, we're talking about the Israelites, because I feel like, like the new, like they want, like, I feel like this is Israel in a sense. Dragonstone was like the Israel for the Targaryens, and like the Jerusalem or the New Jerusalem promise is Dragonstone. Like it mirrors a lot of these things, but it says in Hebrews, it describes the sword of the spirit as alive, active, and sharper than any sword. And it says it can divide the soul and spirit and judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And it's used as both offensive and defensive. So to help people distinguish what's right and wrong, and to continue to live and protect you throughout your life, and this is it. This is part of her thing, because she's going to help use this to distinguish this, because after, like, I think her sacrificing these people, she sacrificed her son, and that was hard. So she thinks, okay, I can do it with these people, but she's going to really feel the weight of this, and I think that the sword also with the seeds, like we'll talk about in a phallic asset, but that's just how it goes. But that's kind of what's so great about dragons is that, you don't need a seed. It just is, dragon seeds aren't the magic. It's the seed. Like, it's just the magic in general. Like how they call them dragon seeds. Like that's because it's of men, like dragons don't need another dragon to reproduce.
Good point.
So there's something different about that, like, and then how they show it here with the like womb and all of the properties of the womb. I don't know if like some people out there eat them, whatever, but like all the magic that is inside of the womb of a person. So the seed alone cannot like grow unless you tend to it and water it and you have a substance for it to grow.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's like the sword of the spirit and, you know, and the words, they really just do go after the intentions and heart, which follow into everything we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, like, also in terms of Allison, she doesn't want anything, any sword, you know, she doesn't want protection. She doesn't want anything like that. And then it kind of mirrored here when her helper, like her protector, Rhaenyra's protector didn't want to like, he wanted to pull out his sword. He wanted to like protect her. She says it's okay. Like, I don't need a sword. And we see her, you know, what, 2 episodes ago, turning the sword down. Like, it suits you, but it's not my way of fighting.
Yeah.
But it also, like, one last comment. It also says about the, like, peace comes when the phrase is like beating swords into plowshares. It's in, like, where you're actually like plowing and sharing, like, it's not about,
Although dragons plant no trees. Which we kind of saw in this episode.
That's why, like, they all need to realize they're all part of the bigger body and of creation. Like, you know, they all want to take each other down and destroy, and the weirwood trees or this one, that. But it's like, look beyond that. Your turn, babe.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into, so basically we have this like amazing, crazy scene of the descent into the underworld. Like, really, like, what else can we call this? You know, this hellscape that many of the seeds are just knocked down off of the platform into this like fiery hellscape is really all it is. I mean, this is definitely like invoking thoughts of hell or of the underworld, or just like the worst outcome of death and the afterlife that you can imagine. And it is this idea, you know, again, going back to like the Eleusinian mysteries of a descent into the underworld and then a reincarnating, you know, rebirth process afterward. And some of the seeds didn't make it out, but we see like with Hugh and Ulf that they do. And, you know, both of them appear to be really like ready to die, like accepting of death. We talked about with Hugh earlier, because he's kind of a man who's got nothing left to live for. You know, his daughter just died, and he's doing this as sort of his last stand. You know, it's like, what else does he have to live for? You know, his daughter died. They're trapped in the city. There's no food. His wife is, you know, suffering. She wants to go to Tumbleton, but this is like his only opportunity to really, truly try and bring some purpose into his life, into, you know, sort of the shambles of what's happening. So, and then with Ulf, well, Ulf, he like surrenders. Like, there's this difference between showing fear and surrendering, right? Like, Ulf was, and Ulf and Hugh were both like ready to die. Like, I really think like Ulf in that moment, even though it's kind of like funny, like he's stepped in the clutch of eggs, and he's, you know, he is Mithras. He's reborn from the cosmic egg. But he's also like really ready to die in that moment, because he's like expecting it. And so I think he was just like, I'm way in over my head. I am so way in over my head. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not getting out of this alive. So can we please just end it like as quickly and painlessly as possible? And I think showing his belly, like laying there, like belly up in this sort of extremely submissive position as far as like the animal world is concerned, I think that that's what perhaps drew Silverwing towards him. Perhaps she was just like, you're funny, like whatever. Like, you know, she just thought he was like a funny little guy. Whereas with Hugh, he shows no fear, and he's completely brave, but he's also completely ready to die in that moment. And there's, you know, just in the way that Ulf was so submissive, Hugh was so brave in the face of death. And that's something I talk about in my Eye for an Eye video with Damon. When he faces Vermithor, you're staring into the God's Eye. Okay, this is just a parallel to the God's Eye Lake. They're uniquely parallel to one another because the God's Eye Lake is like a nexus of power for the old gods, whereas the Targaryens, they view the dragons as gods. And so by staring into the god's eye, staring into Vermithor's eye, that's how they were able to claim them or claim to bond with him, you know? So that's kind of my thoughts. That's my thoughts there. I thought it was like a descent into the underworld and a rebirth as these, you know, transformed new people. And everyone else was just like a sacrifice. The rest of them are just burnt seeds for the bread. What do you think, Mandy?
Yeah, I think everything has a purpose. But yeah, she's missing the purpose. She's blind to it for her own prideful things. And I think that, you know, when she started to fear finally is when she got that, because you have to have the fear, but not the fear of the dragon, not the fear of the promise, not the fear of the purpose, the fear of the fact that you don't have control, you know, the fear of God, like the fear of the greater. And she seems to think that she can control the dragons, and she says, let them speak first. Mm-hmm. But this is why, like, Ulf just said, I'm ready. Like, it's not being ready. It's just like, I'm out of control. Like, I give up. And Hugh didn't want to control his wife. He let her have free will. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He let her do her thing. And I think that when you realize that you're out of control, but you just go for it anyway, or like do what you feel is your anointed purpose, like he did, it's just, that's what happened. And I actually don't think that they were just, I mean, they're burnt offerings in a sense though. Like, it's like a burnt offering versus like it's a compensation for payment in a sense, because their old gods are thinking like that. Like, she's still not recognizing that, or we don't know why, you know, like, I don't think we're ever going to know why. I think that's part of the point. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's what Dave said in that interview afterwards. Like, we can't decide why dragons choose or why they bond the way they do. But like, that's the point, is like, we're not to judge. We're not to be able to understand why some are saved and some are not, because that's like a personal thing.
Absolutely.
And it's not based on works, apparently.
Yeah, I like that they had thrown that out, because we can kind of speculate. And also, I don't know if you know, some of you guys might know this, but I was a vet tech in my younger years, and I've like learned a lot about animal behavioralism and that kind of thing. And when you're dealing with animals, like I loved it, because this was like a really prime example of dealing with animals, like between these two. So like with Hugh, he's approaching it from that you can't ever let an animal, you can't show your weakness. You can't show your weakness to a cat in particular. I'll tell you that. You do not want them to see your fear, because they will just walk all over you. And
any animal, even bears.
I will face a pit bull any day, no problem. Cats are terrifying. So, and so we see this kind of like this sort of approach to like animal behavioralist sort of way of approaching these, where Hugh shows the fearlessness, but then with Ulf, he's like completely submissive. you know, he shows his belly, and that's like the submissive pose in the animal world. And so it was just like two opposite ends of the spectrum. And yes, we're not like over delving into why the dragons chose, you know, this guy or that guy, but you can clearly see that like there's something to the, like they're definitely giving a lot of personality to each individual dragon. Like there, that's not even a question. All the dragons in this show are having, we're seeing it more and more in season 2. They have their own strong personalities. And so I guess their rider that they choose would have to have his own personality accordingly, you know, that matches that. So like with Hugh, we can see that fearlessness. You have to be fearless in order to wield something like someone or a creature like Vermithor. Whereas with Ulf and Silverwing, you know, she's like the mother. She's like, it's fine if you're like my drunk grandson, like it's fine, just let me drive, you know.
Like, yeah. I was like just in opposite wise, like in this scene, you know, I felt like Vermithor was like, okay, this can be my child, and then vice versa. She's like Hugh's or also another baby, like also another like child for her, because her kids aren't hatched yet. She's looking for another like someone to love, because both the dragons like attitudes are completely different, you know.
Cat riding a dragon. When? That's like Balerion at the Red Keep. Balerion.
We don't know where their blood comes from.
So yeah. So anyways, all right. I think we should probably start wrapping it up. It's getting very late. But yeah, so we had that incredible scene, and then so Ulf decides to go for a little joyride. Now, question for the chat. Do you guys think, did Rhaenyra send Ulf to go fly over King's Landing, or did he just like kind of do that at his own volition? What are your thoughts, Mandy? Do you think he did it on his own, or do you think Rhaenyra sent him?
Oh, no, I think I don't even think Rhaenyra knew. I think, you know, because he went into like, so when I felt all this, like he went into the deeper depths, and he was a light in the darkness, and like he, you know, he's in like this deep sacred spots where they're laying the eggs, and like the dragons going through dragon poop and everything. And I think that all the dragons, like they obviously know their way out. Like he just ended up like, hey, let me get on this, and then went crazy, you know, like it was cool. It was interesting. I think that probably the dragon just went to fly where she normally, or they normally fly. Yeah, like,
yeah, she's like, I have not been to the city in years, girl. I need to go and get my nails done. I need to get my horns shined. Like
the kids are okay.
Yeah, they'll be fine. The eggs are, well, the eggs are cracked, but that's okay. Yeah, I don't know what I think if he went. I kind of am inclined to agree with you, Mandy, where I think he might have just went, and you know, he didn't seem to have any control over that situation, and so probably Rhaenyra like saw him, well, and just was like, okay, let's see what happens, kind of thing.
The character of Ulf, though, like, and how they mentioned how he's getting free rides from everyone in the city. He's getting free drinks from everyone in the city. Drinks are another form of vassals or alcohol spirits, you know. So why would he not get a free stumbling and, you know, stepping on stuff and trembling through the shit or trembling through the poop and like in the darkest mud and dirty, and he's just like, yeah, like you're supposed to. And I think that the dragon kind of showed the higher power here by saying like, okay, like I'll welcome you to the house, because he's like, oh, I guess I was right. But like the dragon here is like the higher loving creature that saw the least of them, the one that doubted it. Like, even though he bragged or whatever, it was like kind of a whole, like all, and how they approach it is like a father mother kind of love. So the dragon's like taking the parentage in a sense, and probably he's like, oh, are you gonna let me ride you, girl? And then like he did it. Like I would imagine he asked, or it's just another free thing, which is that's what grace is given to you. Grace is given to you freely.
Ulf is just that guy.
yeah, but yeah, it's cool.
He's just that guy who's stumbling through life, and he stumbles upwards. But I did have this idea also that I do wonder if maybe he resembles Aemon or Balon, because Ulf posits that he is an illegitimate son of Balon, which is the father of Viserys and Daemon. So he's basically their illegitimate brother. And that is potentially possible because their mother, Alyssa, she did die while they were young. I think Viserys was like 7 and Daemon was like 3 when their mother died, because she died in childbirth. So the possibility, because Balon, he continued living for like another, I don't know, 20 years or something like that after Alyssa had died, but he never took another wife. And so, it's entirely possible that he did, father an illegitimate child. But I do wonder if Ulf might resemble Balon or Aemon, who is the older brother, who was Rhaenys' father. So Balon and Aemon were brothers, the oldest sons of Jaehaerys and Alysanne. So I do wonder if like maybe Ulf looks just like one of them, and that's why she was so receptive to him as well, because we definitely see a resemblance between Ulf and like Viserys and Daemon. Like it's not anything you can really put your finger on, but there's some resemblance going on in their faces. Obviously Ulf is a little rougher around the edges, didn't grow up in within the walls and the confines of the Red Keep, but there is some resemblance going on. And so I would love that if he was like, maybe the spitting image of Balon, or just like kind of a rough around the edges version. And then likewise, Hugh is, it hasn't been confirmed, but we're kind of presuming that Hugh is the son of Sarah Targaryen, who was the sort of exiled daughter of Jaehaerys and Alysanne, because she was a little bit promiscuous, I guess you might say, and Jaehaerys basically disowned her. And both Jaehaerys and Alysanne suffered emotionally greatly for this, division in their family, for the loss of Sarah. Alysanne actually, she really, really wanted to go and find Sarah and bring her home, and Jaehaerys wouldn't let her. And that even created a rift, a fight so deep within Jaehaerys and Alysanne that Alysanne left him for a couple years. She said, screw you. Like, I can't even look at you. You won't let me go get my daughter. And Jaehaerys, he basically threatened her. He was like, you are not going to go and get her, because what do you think they'll do to you? Do you think they're going to let you just walk in or fly your dragon in and act all tough? Sarah didn't have a dragon. She was not a dragon rider. But do you think they're just going to let you come into like a Lycene brothel and take probably their most well-earning, person, lady of the evening, because of her status, because of being Sarah Targaryen? Hugh even said that she earned more, she had more freedom because of who she was, than the other ladies. And so we have to wonder, does Hugh, like, I am choosing to believe that Hugh is like the spitting image of Jaehaerys, just like out of spite. And even his name, Hugh, is kind of like similar to like you. It's like, you, Jaehaerys, he looks like you. And I just really like that.
Yeah, that's the difference between you and I, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like this comment, and we see Christian Cole saying like, this is the Dragon's War. And that's what they, but that was their intention. Their intentions was to call out a dragon, and guess what? They're calling out dragons. So that's another thing where the judgment scales come by. I mean, really, like, in all the story, and then just in my life personally, like, I really am starting to open my eyes to see to where like every little option and thing I do I do is, it does have consequences, and it does have, I do get judged, and I do have, but I'm being opened up to these greater understanding for things. And like, that's also the problem with like narcissists nowadays. Like they scapegoat you versus try to understand and learn. And I think like, again, the story's old as time. It's repeated. It's changed. It's all over the place. But like the point is that, is it you or I? No, it's us. It's we.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because even Rhaenyra and Allison's, let's just comment really quick on that, because before we hang up, man, like that just touched my heart, especially like with the red hair in the water. I drew like a picture of myself where I was like drowning in water, and I like the hair was like that, and the hair to the roots of the sea, of the ground. There's a lot of references to that, but like she came in there like a cross, like she was, ready, but there was a hope and glimmer of life. But like even her position ended up being like the hanged man position in a sense, where the one foot was down, the one foot was up.
Yeah, good point.
But there was like an eagle that flew by, and that you see her also, her head is above water, like, but no one else is coming to get her. All these things she put into her works, to her lies, to her deception, to her, all these things. I'm a mother, I'm this, or like, a judgment, an eye for an eye, an arm for an arm. She's really starting to change, and I love the peace in her. I love the woman she played in this scene. She had, and I know that Lady of the Lake stuff too. Like I just thought of all the things you're gonna say for that, but like
I hadn't even thought about the Lady in the Lake stuff.
No, but she like, here's the thing: is he goes and he's the sword, but Alicent with her words and the words that she claimed ended up being also the downfall. They were the sword. So now the swords are put together, and the words she said, and it was the words of Viserys that was like a sword to his own family. And then when she found out that they were false, she couldn't repent and she couldn't say it. So now she's brought to the wilderness to refine it. And, she's a very religious character, and she understands these deeper, and she does try to hold true to them. She does have good intentions, but she didn't like, it doesn't matter. Like we're all spoiled. We all are good. We all are bad. We all are capable of everything, and I think sometimes we even are open to other people controlling us all the time, like other voices controlling us, other entities sometimes, or whatever. Like you end up giving yourself to them because you're not listening to your own purpose, your own voice. I mean, you do have to obey certain things and levels, but again, it's like, oh yeah, I can, I will. I haven't been able to do art lately, but I think I did show it on some Yellow Jackets. That actual one of me, I put myself as the hanged Mandy. I actually ripped it up because I felt like I was entrapping myself in a way. Like I felt like I was stagnant of my growth into where I'm going. And I just didn't, I don't know. I don't want to do that. So yeah, I'm a mystery. But anyway, like she just, I can't wait to see where they take her character. I loved, and she was in blue and in the fields with the flowers, but some of those flowers are like the poisonous flowers. I think they showed like how, like the Hellborns and stuff. It's all like deceptive.
I'm still choosing to. I'm going with my theory was correct, that her wound was infected. I mean, think about all the rats and everything. So she goes out to the forest and she has her own like dream sequence situation. So I'm choosing to believe that was still accurate. Maybe not quite as infectious fever dreams, but she did, she was trying to escape like the infectious city.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it says. It actually talks about that. It's like the rags are the impurities, just impurities, and just, yeah, like it happens. Poison is poison, and it happens to all of us. And like even the food we eat sometimes and whatever, like it's all over the place. We can't escape it, but the ability to recognize it and try to be better is what it's about.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why, you know what? Just like I said earlier in the beginning of this, if you guys missed it, I just said Alicent is going out to the forest. You know, she did say earlier in the season that summer is over, well and true. So she's just taking advantage of berry picking season. That's all.
But her hair is down. It was peace. It was just quiet. It was she needed to recognize herself.
Yeah, and that's something she's been, you know, she's really struggling with. It's like, what is her purpose now? Because her purpose has always been, okay, I'm married to the king. I'm having these royal babies. I'm raising them. You know, my purpose for a long time was this animosity towards Rhaenyra and just having like this constant contention with her. But now, like, you know, in this moment, I really think she's like stepping back and zooming out and looking, and especially when I think she said after the episode, she said something like she sees the cut on her arm and she just realizes how like stupid the whole thing is, because it's just like a parallel to Rhaenyra's cut on her arm. And she's just like, I mean, you can imagine like that sort of moment of just clarity of just like, holy crap, look at how far this has come, you know? And so she now, because Aemond essentially dismissed her in the last episode, and so now she's just at this point where she's like, what is my purpose? Like, is my purpose to continue to drive this sort of like hate campaign towards Rhaenyra, who like, what differences do we truly have? And even, you know, Rhaenyra's even come to me. She's risked everything to come to me to try and seek peace out and to make peace. Then I turned her away. So like, you know, I think
that was her moment. The same with Jace, and the same with, you know, she gave that moment the same as those two moments we saw today. And her heart was hardened then too. She didn't want to hear she was wrong. She didn't want to repent. She didn't want to say, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe it could be. No, she used her purpose as an excuse for the work she did. You know, she was basing it based on the works. She lost her purpose. I think her purpose is still the same.
You know, I actually just had this thought right now, actually, because, you know, we have that moment when there's the food riots happening and she gets cut on the arm and she's just trying to protect Helaena, like from all the people attacking them, the mobs. Like that's her whole motivation, is to protect Helaena. And then we see the trailer for next week, the finale. And Aemond goes to Helaena and tells her, I need you to fly Dreamfire into battle. Like the pretenders are, you know, have raised an army of more dragons. I need you to fly. Like, first of all, like, see, this is communist Aemond at his finest. He's like, Comrade Aemond says it's time. Mourning period is over. You must come back to work. Ride dragon into battle. She's like, my son died 2 weeks ago. Like, you know, and so.
Well, it's he wants her to give her an outlook for her rage or to feel, but like he wants her to serve a purpose and kind of aim into her. Remember, he was like, oh, I'll marry her. She's blood. She's this. It's another pawn to him, but especially now in his fear, because now that he's living in fear, we're going to start to see that arc. I mean,
well, yeah. And so then we see further in the trailer, like there's this scene of Alicent like yelling at Aemond, and she's like, you know, you wish to rule, but you reign over ruin and death. Something like that.
Last week though, like everything we talked about, I mean, it's so appropriate.
Well, but then in the background, as Alicent is yelling at Aemond, we see Helaena standing in the background, and she's like holding her hand like she's hurt. And so I am wondering if like Aemond, you know, he goes to her and he says, oh, you need to fly, you know, Dreamfire, yada, yada. And like, what if he like grabs her or does something and hurts her? And so then I'm thinking to myself, okay, so Alicent, she's finally like, we see her like lashing out. She's like, you think you can rule, but you just bring death and ruin. And like saying something like that to your own child is actually like pretty freaking harsh, even if they are a sort of, you know, homicidal maniac. And that's something that we've talked about many times throughout our streams, is like, at what point, like, you don't punish your child for the bad things he does. So he keeps doing worse and worse things. So finally now Alicent is laying it down, and she's like, you like, kind of too little too late, let's be real. But did he hurt Helena? And is that why she's holding her hand? Did he hurt her? And that's what it finally takes for Alicent to find her purpose. Okay, my purpose, fine. You boys, you're done for. You're like, obviously, like, Aemond is a psycho. I can't, fight against that. But all I can do is protect my daughter, who has already gone through terrible, terrible things. And so if all she can do, if her whole purpose is just to protect Helena, then that's a good purpose. That's decent. I would like to see Alicent's arc towards that, because Alicent has kind of been lacking purpose throughout the season. Like, she's having her little love affair with Kristen, and she's trying to serve in the small council, but they're sort of rejecting her. And so her purpose has just been, where is it? And it's just like Nat says, you got to have a purpose, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to see that for Alicent. I would love, if that's where we're developing for the future, then great. I would love to see more of that. Should be interesting.
It's going to be a lot with that. And I think also, like, he's always been kind of covetous of having Helena. And I mean, it's like, so it's like, thou shalt not uncover the nakedness of thy brother's wife. It is thy brother's nakedness. And then we saw with Daemon, where we think at first it's his brother's wife, and then we see it's his mother at the end. And then he ends up seeing his brother now naked, and like, well, he wasn't naked, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just naked in his soul, like naked in a sense. Mm-hmm. And then like dead. And if it takes his brother's wife, it is an unclean thing. They shall be childless. So it's kind of like already played out. But I mean, we all know how it plays out, but it's just gonna, like, I hope that they do it in a sense where it's deeper too, or it shows, I don't know which way it could show a couple different new emotions for Aemond, or other than fear and desperation, but like, it also could be an amplifier for Alicent. Mm-hmm. And for some really cool things for Alicent to do, because it's her innocent girl. Like, she knows that she messed up, and I'm sure she feels guilt for the whole situation, and she's starting to feel guilt for what it is, and like admit that she's wrong. And she sees that instead of her raising her kids and saying he's the prince that was promised, she raised, a good for nothing child.
Yeah.
And she took over all that parts, instead of letting, raising it up in the way that kings should be raised up, like how Rhaenyra was raised up by her father and told stories and the histories and the things like that. Like, she didn't take the time to do that. So
yeah, there's definitely this, it's something I've like hammered so many times. It's like the difference in the Targaryen Hightower children versus like Daemon's children, and their sort of knowledge and reverence of the dragon, because they learned the ancestral secrets and the the blood connection, and like that information is so important to Daemon and to Laena when he was married to Laena. And then we even see with Rhaenyra, because she is very studious on this kind of stuff as well, versus like Aemond or Aegon, who can't even speak High Valyrian. But like Aemond, he just uses his connection to Vhagar, or considers his, claim on Vhagar as like just a full on like power, like strength play, I guess you might say. Like, it's just a show of power, versus having like the actual knowledge, ancestral knowledge, to know like even why. And so I think that is such an important distinction between the two factions, because that's something that Daemon has been like hyper focused on throughout, his children's entire lives, and, his own life. And that's like his main, like, that's what I was saying before about like the three heads of the dragon and his kind of obsession with recreating that.
Well, and that also goes into holding stewardship. It's like his ancestors did that. So why is he still doing the same things that his ancestors instead of holding on to what his ancestors made him, holding the stewardship of his house, holding the part he's supposed to play? He's trying to be like his ancestors for fame and glory and the works and what they did. And instead of, he's ending up in doomed, and he's not making, what you have in front of you is what you need to do your best things. And what could also kill you though. So,
but and do you want to recreate, like, do you want to be 3 heads of the dragon that are 3 heads of pure destruction, like at Harrenhal? Do you want to be that third head,
Yeah. And then so this he's also technically like in a wilderness portion himself. But so it, like the whole scene with Allison and like when she's rebaptizing herself and coming out of the water, it's like there's also the reed shaking in the wind and the flowers for you are but a flower, don't worry about tomorrow because you're a flower that fades. You here today and gone tomorrow and stuff like that. And like,
Persephone.
It's the frailty of human existence. It's the fact that we can be here today, gone tomorrow. And Helena is going to represent that flower, I think. She's going to be Allison's, really awakening to let me just go back and love them. And when they lost their kid, she didn't love. She was like, oh, I gotta be this way how my father was. I have to be, I have to stay strong. Or then she used that, like her son, as a guilt offering in a sense. And then that's what pretty much
we bought
they're going to be guilt offering.
What does he say? Otto says something like, we bought their love and their loyalty with the tears of your son, kind of thing.
Like Nefarious. But like they're, I think the whole theme is that they're not feeding and doing what they ought to do and raising them up of the children how they're supposed to. And Viserys was doing that always. There was always food on the table. Come to my table, come my whole family at the table. Let's do this together. Like that's kind of now has more significant meaning than ever.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Miss Mandy, I think it's about time for us to wrap it up. We've been going for 3.5 hours, so I think it's about time. I did drop in the chat a video also. I wanted to just put it out there because of Ulf and his cosmic rebirth. So I did make a video a while back about the oily black stone and what I believe is the source of it. And it does have to do with a little something that Ulf stepped into. So if you're interested, definitely check that video out. It's linked here and I'll put the links in the description as well.
Let me make a point on that though, because I just thought of it. And when we see Daemon cracking out the eggs, it's not oily, it's ashes.
That's like the clutch. Yeah.
Okay, but like that didn't he not stuff in the same thing? But like the difference is from ashes to ashes, and now he has like an oil, like a watery substance.
Or like a yolky kind of.
Yeah. There's something there.
Yeah. Maybe.
Oh, the yolk on the neck. Like a neck of the like a burden, like the yolk of the neck, the rider, the dragon, and he becomes a yolk. Like he's a yolk of the dragon's power. The dragon rider. Oh, with Ulf. That's
interesting. I like that. Yeah, so much symbolism with Ulf just stepping into a pile of egg.
Probably more to the if I hadn't hurt my leg. There's something more to that too. You gotta look into that. Well, I'll search that. Anyway,
some Coach Ben.
It's 3 a.m. where I am. Let's go. Good night.
Yeah, we appreciate you all. Thank you for hanging out with us for such a long stream, but it was a lot of fun. It was a really great episode. And I will be working on a video this week for you guys. And then, I don't know, maybe we'll do another live stream this week. I don't know. I haven't even asked Mandy until right now, but maybe like a predictions, finale predictions or something like that. Maybe we could do that on Friday.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But we really appreciate all of you guys for being here, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, thank you guys so much
for the last
Keep it lit. Keep it lit, my friends.
Keep it lit.
Thanks for the love.
As Rhaenyra would say, lit in the pit.
Yeah.
Oh, can I just tell you guys this other one I thought of? Hold on. I'm going to type it in the chat. It's called We're Here, We're. Get used to it. Okay. I got to go. It's late. All right, guys. Thanks for being here. Jackie out.
Bye.